Oh my gosh. You know what? I should have showed you guys. I probably shouldn't show you this, but I should show you the video of my son and I driving home from getting his wisdom teeth out. It was the funniest thing in the whole world. It is. I did post it to Twitter today. There's lots of swear words, and no, my child does not swear like a trucker like that in front of his mom, at least. Well, when you're drugged up on ketamine and Valium, and I apparently he's one of those, like, 2% of rare people that has a really, really high metabolism, so had to give him, like, triple the dose of everything else. So let me go ahead and pull up my chats real quick, everybody. I do not have them pulled up. Alright, I've got yay, Night Guardian, welcome, Chris, welcome, Julian. Your favorite color? Yeah, I didn't my hair is a mess today because, well, it was just a long freaking day. And then once I got home from the orthodontist, because I have a massive garden, which I don't know why every year I make it just a little bit bigger. So it's extremely large. Julian, do you have time to send a link into our group chat so that Ford knows we started? He might be watching someone else, but just in case, I forgot. I haven't had a chance, like I said. I screwed up on my thumbnail. So I had to go and redo it when I was about ready to go live. So that kind of sucked. But that's just life. That just happens. And I appreciate everyone being patient. Got to pop it out on X. Give me 3 seconds. I like to make sure that if there's people talking in X that I can say hi to them if they're chatting. Guys, if you're on X, if you're on YouTube or any of these places, I do pay attention to all three chats because you guys are the reason why I do all of this stuff. Hello, Slidey Pie. Welcome. Hold on. I could have done all of this before I went live. I'm like, yeah, I'll just do it and just kind of hang out and chit chat and let's just see how everything's going. Okay. We got the live up right there. And as usual, um, I haven't sent out any notifications like I should. And that's because I didn't know what time. Hello, the left cat meme on X. Welcome, Andy. So I don't know if YouTube had the title on there because I've decided to add YouTube after I play my intro song. Because even though I've paid for the copyrights to be able to play it, it gives me copyright strike every time I do. So that is the reason why you guys start 5 or 10 minutes later. Welcome, Cobb. Got Slidey Pie, Chris, Julian, and thank you very much for messaging forward. It's much appreciated. So for those on YouTube, we are going to watch day 2 of the Senate hearings. A lot of people think that they're boring. I hope that, as we're going, can add our own insights, that we can make it not less boring. I do want to hear all of it. I want to hear the questions. I want to see their facial expressions as they answer, because body language says a lot. And everyone is talking Olympics and whatever else is going on in the world. And there's 2 things on top of mind for me right now. It's the child stuff, the child trafficking. That is number 1 on my things that I want to keep on the weekly limelight. I want to keep it going every single week to remind people that this is an issue and it's real. And number 2 is the Trump attempted assassination. And hello, Lescobito, welcome. Okay, so with that said, everybody, let's go ahead and get this started, or we'll be here all night long. And I gotta switch out my earbud first. Hopefully you guys can't hear the movie downstairs let me make sure I have my echo cancellation turned on my settings real quick. Well, let's share the screen first. Sorry, dead air for just 3 seconds. I apologize. For sharing this real quick. And then, hi, Fifi, long time no see. How are you? I've been trying to check on Fox. If anyone knows has Fox's Dark Fox, if you guys have his DMs, check on him. I think he had to put his cat down. So someone reach out. I reached out the other day But maybe if a lot of people send them our love, it'll help out. Hello, Kilo Nova X-ray or Nova X-ray. Welcome. And welcome, Johnny's Palace from X. We've got a good, fun little group here so far. Okay, earbud in check. Then we can.
Instead, grazed his ear.
I knew that was.
3 others sitting behind President.
All right. So I will be pausing and talking throughout this. If you don't like the way that I structure this, because this is reaction, you are welcome to go find it over on YouTube or on Rumble in the full version without me talking. When I do talk, I will push pause because I'm severely ADD and I can't listen to 2 things at once. So I'm assuming a lot of people in this world cannot either. So anyway, let's get going. And by the way, guys, I'm super excited to be here tonight. And I'm super excited that for this late at night, for me starting so late, that I have so many people hanging out already. Okay, let's see. And yes, I'm going with my flag backdrop for quite some time because you know what? We have an election coming up and we need to make sure that we have our eyes wide open. We need to make sure that, and not just on the federal level, we need to make sure that we're electing people on the state level. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I will tell you how I'm going to vote, and you get to make up your own mind and make your own choices. I hope that you choose correct for our country and what's best for our country. It definitely isn't, in my opinion, I'm not voting for cackling Kamala Harris. You guys can vote for whoever you would like. I doubt she'll be in the running. Okay. Now I'm rambling and someone opened my door because I can hear the music. Let's make sure. Julian, oh, I forgot to turn my mic back up. So hopefully this whole time my intro song is so loud that I have to turn it down like 60%. Oh, yeah, I have all of the receipts for that Johnny's Palace. I have all of the receipts for you know what? I will find the receipts for that and the company that did shorts and which companies they shorted because I have that saved. But we'll do that during like a little pause break if that's okay with you. I just got to make sure Julie didn't respond, so I don't know if I have echo on my mic. So if I have echo on my mic, please press 3. I would muchly appreciate that. All right, as I start that, no echo, sweet. Perfect. All right, as I play this video, guys, 1, as it's just right. Number 2, you can't hear it. And 5, it's blowing out your eardrums. That is the best way to make sure because I can adjust the volume specifically on the video.
President Trump on the stage experienced a different fate. 50-year-old Corey Comparator, a father and former fire chief, was struck and killed. As one outlet recently reported, this brave and loving man, quote, spent his final moments diving down in front of his family, protecting them from the gunfire that rang out, end quote. He is survived by his wife and 2 daughters. 2 others, 57-year-old David Dutch and 74-year-old James Copenhaver, were seriously injured. I'd like to pause for a moment of silence in remembrance of Corey and in prayer for the recovery of David and James. Thank you, everyone. This failed attempt on President Trump's life demands urgent and comprehensive congressional oversight. We must understand how it happened to ensure that changes are made so this never happens again. That was a scene last Saturday where thousands of Americans were exercising their constitutional rights until they were viciously attacked. Yet what we saw after those shots rang out should also encourage everyone. We saw a leader under fire rising up to show the attacker had failed. We saw brave Secret Service agents who put their bodies in harm's way. And we see Americans across this nation refuse to let this thwart their participation in our democratic process. At the same time, however, we also witnessed a massive security failure by the Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security. the closest someone has been to taking the life of a president or presidential candidate since Ronald Reagan was shot in 1981, more than 40 years ago. We must be committed in our determination to ensure that this never happens again. That is why the House Committee on
I'm pushing pause for just 1 second because I got to move my other window somewhere else. So just 1 second. Sorry about that.
Homeland Security is demanding full transparency and accountability. That's why we made a trip to Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday to see the site for ourselves. I'm grateful to the ranking member and the 11 other members who were able to come yesterday. And I want to share with the American people some of what we saw yesterday. I, for one, was struck by how close the unsecured building from which Thomas Crooks took his shot was to the stage where President Trump was standing. What we saw yesterday only raises more questions about how this roof was unsecured. And after several of our committee members climbed on the roof, let me tell you, any excuse about the roof being too steep to post a counter sniper team up there is pure nonsense. Protecting the President of the United States and presidential nominees is the Secret Service's mission. There can be no room for mistakes. Unfortunately, that was not the case here. In order to prevent a repeat of this, we must first thoroughly gather and assess the facts. And that's why we're here today. Most importantly, to obtain answers for the American people from officials in the best position to provide those answers. And like tens of millions of Americans, our list of questions is extensive. Why was the rooftop which the shooter fired multiple rounds not secured? Who made the decision not to post a counter sniper personnel on the roof or in a place better to cover the roof? Were warnings from private citizens in attendance about a shooter on top of the building heard by federal law enforcement? And if so, why was nothing done to respond? How did the shooter access the rooftop despite reported federal and local law enforcement presence in and around the building? Were there communication breakdowns that prevented law enforcement officials from effectively communicating with each other in response to alerts and threats? The shooter was spotted and designated as a suspicious person prior to President Trump taking the stage. Why wasn't President Trump moved to a secure location until the Secret Service could investigate? The shooter visited the rally site multiple times before the actual rally. Reports indicate he even flew a drone on a reconnaissance trip to the rally site on the day of the attack. Why wasn't the site secure? Following the rally, the Secret Service said that reports President Trump's security detail requested additional security resources were false. However, then backtracked and told the Washington Post that the Secret Service had learned new information, indicating the Secret Service headquarters may have in fact denied some requests. Why and when were those requests denied? These are just some of the most pressing questions we have and expected to hear answers from Secretary Mayorkas and Director Wray and Director Cheadle. We also expect to hear answers and questions about the shooter's motivation and what the FBI has found in its investigation, including information collected from the shooter's various devices. Unfortunately and unacceptably, they have refused to appear before the committee today. Director Cheadle testified yesterday before another committee, but many questions remain. Yesterday, she provided wholly unacceptable responses to members of the House Oversight Committee and completely failed to address the lack of confidence both sides of the aisle have in her leadership of the Secret Service. Her appearing before one committee yesterday also does not absolve her of her responsibility before this committee. In any case, make no mistake, we will continue to push for answers. While these federal officials refuse to testify today, we're grateful for the opportunity to speak with law enforcement members about the events of that tragic day. Their testimony will be critical to putting together this complicated puzzle, understanding coordination efforts, and getting to the truth about what happened. Before I conclude, however, I have to urge the ranking member to reconsider his legislation that was clearly intended to strip Secret Service protection from President Trump. While I understand the legislation would not have applied in this instance, it was clear to everyone that it was directed toward former president. We all introduced messaging bills. This one should be withdrawn. Today's hearing is critical so we can ensure that our children and grandchildren will grow up in a free nation where every American can participate in the democratic process. I hope every member will join me in getting to the bottom of what happened so that it doesn't happen again. I
just want to give a shout out real quick to Jason Neptune for the $2 Rumble Rat. Thank you so much.
Recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Thompson, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. It's been 10 days since a 20-year-old took his father's AR-15 rifle to a campaign event in Butler, Pennsylvania, shot the former president and 2 others, and took the life of an innocent bystander who died.
Okay, another pause. I gotta push pause for a sec because I'm gonna fast forward and get just straight to the questioning. This is just gonna be all of their positions on everything. I'm sure they're important. You can go back and watch the start of this. I want to get to the questioning. The gun has not been arrested yet. Yeah, why haven't they arrested that gun yet? That's a very good question, Ford. We can skip a good. Oh, do they even have any questioning yet?
Attempted assassination of President Trump. Instead,
I wonder if they were rounding up witnesses by chance. Holy goodness, how long was their recess for?
Pennsylvania.
One second, guys. I'm trying to get it to where we're not. Let's see. I should have got a timestamp. I'm sorry. I was torn between topics tonight. I wanted to catch up on our child trafficking stuff, but a lot of people had commented that they needed something less dark, but so that means we just got to cover it. Still got to cover it another night, so probably Sunday night. Hold on. Jeez, let's try this. Well, this is catching up. We'll just say hi to everybody. How's that? Or we can continue to do 5 seconds. I wish that they had a 30-second button on here. All right.
As I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. Colonel Paris, typically these events, do they typically have 2 control rooms or 2 sort of tactical operations areas where the Secret Service is in their sort of spot and the local law enforcement is in their sort of command center? Is that how it's typically done?
I would say from my experience and from state police operations, to include this event as planned in our operations plan, we had integrated communications by having our PSP personnel in the Secret Service command post.
So your person was in there in that command post on this event?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if the local sheriff had anybody or the deputies that were also provided, the local guys?
I would be remiss at this point to say I knew an exact listing of everyone in that command post.
The sheriff yesterday told us he did not. Would you expect him to have had somebody there?
So I would say generally, there's a lot of talk about interoperability and communications. The state police, for example, operate our own.
Okay, really quickly, I want to let you guys know who this guy is. So they introduced him. So this is Colonel Christopher L. Paris. He is a native of Lackawanna County, was nominated by Governor Shapiro to lead the Pennsylvania State Police. Colonel Paris enlisted in the Pennsylvania State Police in 1999. So he's been there for a really long time, beginning his career as a trooper assigned to Trooper K Shippack. So just want to let you know who this person is that's speaking so that we can kind of understand Lackawanna. Well, thank you very much for that. I always like it when you guys can correct my speech.
Our own statewide radio network. So we have the ability to, if we have an incident, a long protracted incident, for example, where we need to patch other agencies in, we have the capability to do that. However, Secret Service, for example, maintains some additional encrypted communications. So the best way to integrate unified command.
Is physically present in the
Correct,
command
that would
site.
be our.
Yeah,
I
that's
would
how the
expect-
Army does it, the military.
I would
does it.
expect our commanders to have personnel in there so that we could have radio communication as well as a redundancy in the operations plan with a telephonic backup.
Do you know if in this particular case, I mean, normally they sweep these sites with dogs. Was a K-9 team used here for this event?
I do not know. I have not seen the Secret Service operations plan. I've asked for it. I've yet to receive it. I did double check. That was something that PSP could typically offer to the Secret Service if they requested it. And I did verify that in this event, we did not provide any dogs.
Okay. As I understand it, there wasn't one, but you'd expect one in a situation like this.
So I want to be clear that when the Secret Service interfaces with the state police for whatever protectee and level of protection they're endeavoring to provide, the Secret Service is the lead agency. So as per the earlier statement of 18,000 law enforcement agencies across the United States, it would be very difficult, I would assert, for the Secret Service to operate all across the United States and have each individual agency telling the Secret Service how the operation should be run. They're the lead agency. If that was something that their protocols called for during the initial meeting when preliminary steps and agencies were brought together, that would be something that would be discussed typically.
The AGR building, did your guys on the ground there ever voice concerns to the Secret Service for not putting somebody on that building?
So I suppose the best sequence of events that I can give you is that PSP was notified by email on July 5th about this event. There was an initial planning meeting where we had commanders present on Monday, July 8th. So over Tuesday the 9th and Wednesday the 10th, those commanders that we designated, basically our orders are from the front office, my team on down. You know, we work collaboratively with the Secret Service, collaborate, give them what we can. The final walkthrough occurred on the 11th. Present at that meeting were the two commanders that were tasked with both staffing the security checkpoints on the interior of the secure perimeter, as well as the commander who was going to be in charge of the motorcade. But in addition to that, a PSP area commander was on that walkthrough, holding the rank of major.
Could you share a little bit of insight? I appreciate the timeline, but could you share a little bit, because I only have about a
I
minute.
apologize.
Yeah, the specific to the AGR building.
So on that walkthrough, our area commander asked specifically who was responsible for the AGR building, and we were told that Butler ESU was responsible for that area by several Secret Service agents on that walkthrough.
Okay. All right. One last quick question. Real quick, I mean, I'll let you comment about it. The slope of the roof, would that have prevented a sniper from being up there?
I don't believe so, sir.
Okay, thank you. I yield. I now recognize the ranking member for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you very much.
So that was Mr. Green. No, he's not the governor from, no, they wouldn't have a governor here. Anyway, I was thinking he was a governor from Hawaii. Different Mr. Green.
Commissioner Parrish, you talked about your tenure with the Pennsylvania State Police. Have you worked other events where a presidential candidate or the president has come to Pennsylvania?
Yes, I have, sir.
So this would not have been an unusual occurrence to participate.
I ran the numbers. We typically do about 20 missions a year, the low 20s a year in a regular year. We're already in the low 20s this year being an election year. So our commanders in the field who interface with the Secret Service to plan and provide support are on a routine basis. I wouldn't say an everyday occurrence, but a fairly routine basis.
Okay. So can you walk us through the Pennsylvania State Police's interaction with the Secret Service? You kind of started off giving us from the point of contact that an occurrence was about to happen. Was there anything particular about the Butler, Pennsylvania event that stands out as regular, irregular, or anything?
I would say, not to my knowledge, based on our discussions with our commanders who planned it, it progressed along a normal timeline. They attempted to give the Secret Service, and I believe provided the Secret Service with everything they were requested.
So your role on that day in terms of the state police was what?
So I would classify it as in a support role, and the two main areas of responsibility for the state troopers that were assigned that day were those participating in the motorcade to get former President Trump from his point of landing to the venue in Butler County and back, with several other additional entities that were requested by the Secret Service. And then on site, we had to staff security posts that were determined by the Secret Service. All of those posts were inside of the secure perimeter of the Butler County Farm show.
I guess I was one of those individuals who traveled to Butler. Just for my information, have you had any interaction with the FBI or anything as they look into the investigation as to what you or your men observed on that day?
Yes, we're conducting an investigation largely in concert with and parallel to the Bureau, because the actions of crooks have federal legal implications and state law implications.
Okay, thank you. President Yost, in your comments, you talked about the need for communication. You talked about FirstNet. And so we have federal, state, and local law enforcement at an event like what we're talking about in Butler. But in our conversation with some of the locals, not state police, but the sheriff's department and the chief of police in Butler yesterday, those individuals did not have communication with actually state police or Secret Service. Would that, in your professional opinion, be a vulnerability for managing an event like this?
Well, I think we can go back to 9/11 when we identified at that time that the interoperability of different agencies to be able to communicate really was a hindrance. There's an infrastructure in place now to address these interoperabilities, but at the same time, they're not always utilized in every event. I do not have any direct knowledge whether that was the issue here, but I can tell you it is a common issue in law enforcement and ability for our agencies not to be able to communicate. Not that the technology is not necessarily there, it's because that they're not always incorporated.
You know, we passed legislation mandating obviously FirstNet interoperability, and we tied funding to make sure that that happens. But here we are looking at this situation, and we picked up some valuable information that we're still not where we need to be on that. I would think that Colonel, the role of the state police is invaluable, but it appeared in talking with some of the local officials, as you say, it's just, you're not primary, you're kind of secondary in that role, that we need to somehow, as a committee, look at how do we enhance the overall mission so that we have no gaps. So I look forward to the work of this committee, identifying the gaps, look at the after action review to close those gaps. So just to tell you one, Butler, Pennsylvania has no permitting process for events of that size. So you can announce it and hold it, and local government doesn't really have anything to do with it. And we were assured by local government that they would try to fix that. That they said we have to be more involved in events of this size. so that if this was not the best venue, then that permitting could have gotten engaged and suggested an alternate venue, those kind of things. So thank you very much. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize Chairman McCall for 5 minutes questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank you for the site visit that we had at Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday. It was very eye-opening, educational. I agree with the ranking member's comments in terms of, after 9/11, after 9/11, connecting the dots and federal, state, and local working together was the answer. I led a joint terrorism task force when I worked at the Department of Justice, and I also was involved in national security events, so I kind of know how these things operate. My question is to Colonel Paris. It's standard practice that the lead federal agency will come in and meet with the state and locals regarding the security plan before the event, prior to the event.
Okay, I'm pushing pause for a sec. I apologize that I had to step away. So for most of you who were here at the very start of this stream, my son did have his wisdom teeth taken out today. So there might be what he perceives as a crisis. So I might have to step away. That would be the only reason. And I also just want to remind people, these Senate hearings, most of you who follow me know law mostly. These are not like actually court proceedings. Their whole entire goal here is to see where are the failures in the system so that they can create new laws or change policies in the name of making sure this doesn't happen again. So that is their goal in doing this stuff, and also trying to get answers at the same time. So that is why these people, if the shoe fits, that's why a lot of these times these people don't really answer truthfully. The Dr. Pepper lobbyist got to that guy? Yes, probably most definitely. Most definitely. Or you would say PepsiCo? By Big Pepper. Does PepsiCo doesn't own Dr. Pepper, does it? Anyway, that's why I stepped away. My apologies. We're going to get back to this. I just want to let you guys know that. And thanks for your patience tonight.
Sir, did you participate or did your department participate in that?
So I did not participate. As I stated earlier, there were two commanders dedicated to those two primary roles, the motorcade and the staffing of the posts on site within the secure perimeter, as well as a state police area commander. So just as a way of background, our area commander that covers multiple troops in that area of the state, out of nearly 5,000 troopers, there are only 4 area commanders. So that major was present for the walkthrough on the 11th.
And were your troopers assigned inside the perimeter or outside?
Inside.
Inside. And was
With
the
the
outside within the jurisdiction of the local police?
So just as a point of clarification, there were 2, on the operations plan, there were 2 marked cars that were assigned roving duties, which would primarily, as the name implies, be outside of the secure perimeter on roadways, responding to incidents that potentially could occur as a result of a congregation of that many people. But
So we saw, we actually walked onto the roof where the sniper was. A clear, eyes-on, clear shot of the president. A tree blocked the Secret Service's view. This kid did some investigation. He had a drone out there days prior, got an aerial surveillance of the premises. And that position was probably the best position outside the perimeter, as far as I could tell. There was also a water tower. That would have been a perfect spot for Secret Service. Were you aware of any presence of Secret Service in this water tower?
I was not.
And you're aware of what I'm talking about?
I am familiar. I physically flew out there on Saturday the 13th. It was still very much an active crime scene, so I did not walk the roofs, but I did.
On the adjacent building, we got a tour of that as well, where I believe the local police were positioned. There were 3 windows. The first one had a plain view of where the sniper would be. However, they were stationed in the second and third windows. Are you familiar with this at all?
I am not, from the standpoint that I have not seen the Secret Service's operations plan, and our deference would be to them to assign Butler ESU
Right.
according
And
to.
they were apparently local counter snipers. Do you know if they should have been assigned to the rooftop?
I would defer to there are many ways that you can cover. Obviously, positioning people on the rooftop would be one.
Okay, so anyone who knows anything about tactical, which I'm not an expert on it. I have listened to enough people. The rooftop or the highest point. The highest point should have had someone manned. The water tower is the highest point. I'm not sure if you could see that particular rooftop from the water tower or not. I'd have to look at diagrams more closely. However, why not have someone on that roof? I don't know. And if you guys watched me before, I can post it up again, but there's a Pac-Man. There's a picture that looks like a Pac-Man. And that just happens to be the perimeter is supposed to be a circle. There just happens to be a little slice taken out of it. That's not part of the perimeter. So every time that you hear them say the perimeter was secured, that's how they're getting away with saying the perimeter is secured and not lying, even though they are, if that makes sense.
One of those.
No, and going to the actual site, way too close. He should never have been allowed to get on top of that building. And I don't know how, and I know he's on your radar inside the perimeter. You seem to have lost him, and somehow he finds his way up to the rooftop unimpeded until a local law enforcement officer crawls on top of the roof and looks at him, and he points his AR-15 at him. My question to you is, what was the communication like that day? Typically, Secret Service has one channel for them, the other channel for state and locals. Was there any communication to identify, hey, this is not a local police officer. This is, in fact, an unidentified individual on the rooftop. Was that communicated to the Secret Service?
So my belief, as I sit here today, is that we did have integrated communications from members that were inside of the Secret Service command post. Completely deferential to the ongoing nature of the investigation. I have an understanding of a sequence of events, but I would like to draw a distinction between a sequence of events, meaning.
So my theory is that they thought maybe he was an officer, but then they find out he's not. The thing I find interesting is that the counter sniper Secret Service, within seconds of the shots on the president, kills a suspect. That tells me he had him in his sights. Maybe he was not aware of who the individual was not identified. But I know within seconds after the shots were fired at the president, the threat was eliminated. Lastly, I just want to end with this. This was actually astonishing, and I want to get your confirmation. He had a detonation device with him, and 2 of his bombs were located in his car that was parked on the other side of the perimeter. Seems to me a good theory would be that he was going to kill the president and then detonate his car, causing a diversion, and then escape from the crime scene. Are you aware of any of this?
I am aware of the presence of the device on his person. We were aware of that very early on, and that was a serious tactical consideration in the hours in the immediate aftermath as we worked that crime scene. But to your point about his ultimate theory or what his ultimate motivation was, that remains under investigation.
And he had a rangefinder on him as well. That's a big red flag. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Violence has never been the answer.
Okay, before we proceed too far, as we have these new representatives coming up, I'm going to tell you who they are and where they're from and what party they are from. If you like the way that they are questioning these people and you live in that state where you can vote these people in, this is a good way to kind of learn, who you should vote for. Seeing them in live action, what they actually say, and do their actions match their words. So we have that. So Michael, that's not McCall. Yeah. Did I get the wrong McCall? Hold on. Well, that looks like him. They must have spelled his name wrong on his name tag. If this is the correct one that was just there, Michael Thomas McCall Sr. was born January 14th, 1962. He is an American attorney, politician, and a member of the U.S. House of Representatives of Texas. 10th congressional district. He's a member of the pardon me tonight. He's a member of the Republican Party. He chaired the House Committee on Homeland Security during the 113th, 114th, and 115th Congresses. His district stretches from Austin to Houston. So I'll have to look. So McCall became the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee in the 118th Congress in 2023. So it looks like the picture matches up with him. So I think they spelled his name wrong on his name tag, which that's really weird. That or I misread it, which is very possible as well. So if you live in Texas and you like what this guy has to say, see if he's running for re-election and maybe vote him back in.
And I thank both of you for your service in law enforcement and testifying.
Oh, I didn't know it was Mr. Swallowswell. Mr. Swallowswell is up right now, so you make your own choices on this guy. I think most everybody know who Swallowswell is.
Today, violence has never been the answer. Not on a certain day in January and not on a day in July. I remember I was 12 years old and my dad, I was on the way to school on a cold day in January. And my dad, who was a cop, stopped me as I was about to leave and he wanted me to watch the television. His guy had just lost a presidential election and some young kid from Arkansas was about to be sworn in as the new president of the United States. My dad was burned. He really liked George Bush. He did not like Bill Clinton. But he told me to stop and watch the television coverage of the inauguration because he said, look at that, son. He said, that's what makes us so special. My guy lost, this guy's getting sworn in, and not a shot has been fired. That's what makes us different. Violence has never been the answer. It's despicable that somebody thought they could take a shot at the former president and change the course of history. We don't know much about the political beliefs of this individual. We know he was a 20-year-old male, registered Republican, gun enthusiast, also had researched the DNC, also had researched President Biden, also had researched leader Hakeem Jeffries. We don't know what led this madman to try and kill the former president, but it's despicable. And the people who went...
Okay, let's make this really easy as to what. Okay, I'm gonna be very clear. Let's take a pause and let's be very clear. I am not impartial to my opinions on this one. I, from the very beginning, told you that I believe that this is a total. I believe that there's two shooters. I believe that this was a setup, and yes, of course, violence is the answer. And when they say we don't know why this kid did this, we had Cheadle, who completely was derelict in her duties. She didn't even give Trump the proper Secret Service. You know, you don't give someone that's 5'8", 5'6", 5'4", that cannot handle a firearm to protect the former president of the United States. You gave him someone that's his height, is what I'm assuming. You know, that's what I would want. I'd want someone that's at least 5'11" to cover me if I was in a dangerous situation. This reeks of incompetency. This reeks of a setup. And so when he says, I have no idea as to why this happened. Well, this happened because for months, I'm on YouTube. So let's modify some words. That word that rhymes like with those people from Germany, the Yahtzees, you know, they've called him that and several other things. And, you know, even if he was a lone wolf, if he was a lone wolf, this type of rhetoric and calling him all types of things has caused people to want to go out and repeat it. And the days following with everyone saying, oh, yay, I'm so glad, or no, I'm so sad they missed. You know, those type of things are what's going to cause it to happen again. However, I'm of the firm opinion that this is a huge setup. Okay. Well, I've got this paused because Mr. Swallows Well is not my favorite, but we're going to listen to him anyway because it's really good to listen to their grandstanding and their pandering. That's how we get to know who these people really are. But anyway, so I got this pulled up for you guys. This is let me make sure it showed up on here. Let's put it on full screen for everybody. And let's remove this banner. That'll make it a lot easier for you guys to see. All right. So right there, we have, that is the Pac-Man perimeter that I was telling you about. It just happens to not go in this big, huge circle. See how it goes in the center right there? So you have the Butler Farm showgrounds, and then you have like the law enforcement sniper roof is on the far left. So you have this huge circle, and then you have the stage where Trump was speaking. According to this map, it is on the east. So we will go with that for this map. Also, I explained this the other day in my other show, and I can't remember if it's this right in front of the road, right in front of the stage, or if it's the road beyond those trees. That is, no, those are, looks like houses. So it has to be, if you can see that road in the center there, that is a runway. And that is a runway for student pilots. On that day, there was an aircraft up with a supposed student pilot on there. And this is not confirmed, what I'm going to say next, but this is on this day of the attempted assassination or the attempted shooting or whatever you want. I don't know what words I can say on YouTube, but guys, just make sure you use your own discernment and you do your own research. I'm giving you facts that I've been told. Anyway, the FBI has a certain technology that can go on any single plane, and it can act as a cell tower. And it could go, say, over the state of, or a city, to pick a small city, I don't know, say Austin, Texas. That's a big city. But anyway, they could fly over that city in that state, and they could reroute your cell phone signal to go to this router and act as a cell tower. And in doing so, they can gather and collect all of your data, your text messages, emails, financials, whatever. I don't know what all they can capture. What it also can do is act as a jamming signal. So on this day, guys, there were doctors who were on call, and they have, I think they're sat phone. I don't know if they're sat phones, but they're a special phone. And it's supposed to say the signals are overwhelmed or there's too much traffic going in. They're guaranteed to have a signal. Well, there was these on-call doctors who did not get their phones were not working, and they're supposed to be working. Yet, okay, this is what another thing. So anyway, on this day, one of those planes was up in this, around this airspace, which, why would they allow a student pilot to be flying above where the future president of the United States is? Why would they allow that? Okay, so that's number one. Okay, number two is, what was my number two? Did I just have a squirrel moment? I very well may have just had a squirrel moment. Okay, so they're having this guy fly overhead. Signals are being jammed. Okay, so, and then this perimeter, look at this perimeter here. So that's what gives me pause. That's what makes me, I'm not saying that this device was on that plane. I'm saying that that is a potential possibility. And I'm still looking into that to see, I haven't heard anybody ask about the plane yet. I don't know if anybody has. I do not, Julian does not encourage or endorse government surveillance. And neither do I. And for every person who voted for that. Anyway, let's get back to that. I just wanted to give you perspective, because this is important to understand that when they're talking about the perimeter, this is what they're talking about. And so this is how they could say, well, we had the perimeter secured. Well, they did, but they didn't. Okay, let's get back to our show.
To that rally deserved to hear, without violence, the candidate that they were supporting. Commissioner Paris, I'm sorry this happened to your community. I'm sorry this happened to the person who died and the persons who've been wounded. I just want to understand, though, because we are a country that is armed to the teeth, How many firearms were within the perimeter, just by back of the envelope?
Okay, when you're apologizing to the public, guys, when you're apologizing to families of people who died, and you're apologizing to the community, you don't have to read from a script. That should come from the heart. This is all coming from a script, which tells me he doesn't mean crap about it. Sorry. These people make me angry, so I'm gonna try to keep it in check. I'm gonna try to keep everything in check tonight.
Estimate.
The only firearms of which I'm aware that were inside of the perimeter were those in the possession of law enforcement.
And would you estimate that was hundreds or dozens?
I would only feel comfortable not having seen the Secret Service.
Okay, let's clarify. I did not say that they surveilled with the plane with the cell tower. I'm saying there's a device that they can put in any plane. It could be a crop duster. It could be anything. They can put this device in there that can act as a cell tower to collect data. And it will actually divert the signal from going to, say, an AT&T or a Verizon tower, right? So it'll go to their tower. They can collect the data. And it's also a way that they can hide where someone is at. I am not saying that that was on that plane. I'm saying that that technology does exist. And there was some way that they were jamming that signal. And they are saying that there was no, what are they called? There was no drones. There was no government or city, or there was no official drones flying overhead, which is a great way to surveil everything. Plus, they have this technology that they can see anything from the sky. They can see all of this stuff. If they really want the data and they really want the footage, they could get it. And I don't know what they got to do to get it, but it's there. But I just want to clarify that I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm saying I'm going to look into it further.
Operations plan about the PSP members that were inside of the perimeter.
Okay. How many rounds did the shooter fire before he was killed? Do you know?
I believe that the number is 8. 8 casings have been recovered.
Okay. I also understand the emotions around this assassination attempt, but I am not going to allow some, and I say some, the chairman.
Oh, I'm really surprised by this. Swalwell, wow. I'm kind of surprised. There's been a lot of Democrats that are coming on the good side. Right now, he has a sign up in the back that says the Republican district attorney in Butler County, Pennsylvania, should immediately file charges against Joseph R. Biden for inciting an assassination. I'm kind of surprised by it. So I have not watched or heard this portion yet because I was really busy on Tuesday, but that is I'm kind of surprised by this.
The chairman of this committee is a serious legislator who wants answers. Some are not. And some are trying to rewrite what has happened in our country over the last 8 years, erase what happened in this building on January 6th. One member of this body in Congress said the Republican district attorney in Butler County should immediately file charges against Joseph Biden for inciting.
Oh, wait, that's Mike Collins. I don't know who Mike Collins is. Of Georgia? I'll have to look and see who he is. My apologies.
Assassination. Another said Congressman Scalise, Justice Kavanaugh, and now President Trump, for years, Democrats and their allies have recklessly stoked fears, calling President Trump and others threats to democracies. Another said Democrats and liberals in the media have called Trump a fascist. They've compared him to Hitler. They've tried to lock him up.
Okay, he's reading text messages. I'm curious to see where he's going to go with this. I might have to take back my words about swallows well.
A radical shift in what has really happened in our country. In fact, the former president's current vice presidential nominee is the one who said that Donald Trump might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroin he's responsible for, nauseous and reprehensible.
Oh, he's using this as an opportunity to go after J.D. Vance. Why the hell did I not put, I don't swear very much, shit, damn, hell, and bitch are not swear words, okay? But I still try not to use those ones. He's using this as a way to go after J.D. Vance. the jury's out for me on JD Vance. I do know that these comments were made before 2016. It is now 2024. I am not the same person that I was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I will wear my I need to get a hat of shame every time and to put it on my head every time I say, I voted for Biden 4 years ago. And I say this because I want people to know that you can change your mind, and we need to allow people to change their mind with education and information. So this is his dig. This is his way to go after him. So I'm not the same person I was 4 years ago. JD Vance may not be the same person he was 8 years ago. People change, people grow. I think he was 32. When I was 32, I was still growing up in this world and forming out my own opinions. So that's where you have to decide for yourself. You have to take all the information in from all directions, all sides, with context, so that you can make a good, educated decision about everything in life, not just voting, but with everything in life. He's just upset his girlfriend got deported. Is that the guy that had the spy? Oh my gosh. No. Oh.
I joined the chairman in seeking unity as the antidote to political violence. Unity as the antidote to political violence. But we're not going to erase and rewrite and allow some to reincarnate themselves as victims of what happened. We can't let this ever happen again. We must arm law enforcement and have better security perimeters. But in this country, violence has never been the answer. I yield back.
Gentlemen, yield.
So he wasn't going to ask any questions. He took his 5 minutes to make a political speech. That's all that was. And it was a way to go after JD Vance. All right, guys, everything I said about him earlier, I take back. He still swallows well. He still had a girlfriend that got deported that was a spy.
I'll now recognize the Vice Chairman of the committee, Mr. Guest, for his 5 minutes. Mr. Guest, for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and gentlemen, thank you for both being here today. You both classified as what happened on July 13th as critical failures. I would expand that and say it was a colossal failure. And I think you have both stated that the ultimate responsibility for what occurred that day falls upon the Secret Service. Colonel Paris, I know that your officers were there in a support role. You were following the operational plan set out by Secret Service. You testified that the primary responsibilities for your officers were motorcade and then the interior perimeter, and that you had 2 roving officers there really just out there to provide support if necessary and called upon. You mentioned earlier that you went to the scene on the 13th, and thank you for going there and being a part of that. And you also testified earlier that you have not been provided the operational plan by the Secret Service. Is that correct?
That's correct. We haven't received it yet.
When did you request that?
I'd have to go back and check in the earlier part of the investigation. That was just something that we asked for as a matter of course. We were not told no. We just, to date, have yet to receive it.
And that would be important, would it not? If you're going to investigate what happened on that day, the operational plan, that is the starting point for all the events that later transpired. Is that correct?
Well, I don't want to overstate the role of the state police here is to investigate the 3 Pennsylvanians that were shot and the use of force by the Secret Service counter sniper. To the extent that we need to know the sequence of events leading up to that, we obviously would like to know as much as we can, but it's not our role to do an after-action report on the sequence.
Well, but all the shootings occurred simultaneously. The same shot that struck President Trump, one of those shots killed one.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I have any former cops or state troopers or anyone like that. Why I would assume that everyone would still fill out an after action report. Hold on, my kid's coming in. Push play.
One of your fellow citizens, and 2 others were injured. And so you can't separate the 2. This is one investigation into a shooting that occurred in which one of your citizens were killed. 2 more were fatally injured, in which the president himself was struck. And so the fact that the Secret Service is stonewalling your investigation, that they're not providing you this information. We saw the testimony yesterday from the Secret Service director where she refused to answer questions and has now resigned. I find that to be especially troubling. We have the Secret Service not wanting to cooperate with Congress, not wanting to cooperate with a fellow law enforcement agency. And I personally find that troubling. As we look, and as you are aware from speaking to your officers that were there physically on the scene that day, did Secret Service, did they have any drones in the air so that they could have an eye in the sky and see what was happening, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, I'm not aware that they were using drones, but that,
And
I haven't seen the operations.
does your agency have drones?
We do maintain some drones.
So if Secret Service would have requested your agency to fly drones that day, you would have been able to do so. Is that correct?
We would have endeavored to try to honor that request. Yes, sir.
And you testify that you've been to the scene of the shooting. Did you see the water tower that's located approximately 100 yards from the building where the shooter fired those shots?
I did see it, sir.
And would it have been possible to have put an officer, and again, that's not your responsibility to do that, that's the Secret Service's, but would it been possible to put an officer there looking down on the scene of the rally and the building where the shooter occurred? Would that have been something that would have been possible to do?
Presuming that there's a way to access the water tower. I didn't walk over. I was probably several hundred yards away, so I can't say that I could.
And if you had an officer up there, that would have provided you a strategic viewpoint of the events that were transpiring below, correct?
I would agree. Tactics, height gives a tactical advantage. Yes, sir.
And then I want to ask you also about the roof where the shooter was located. You said you didn't go on the roof, but you viewed the roof. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The Secret Service director, prior to her resignation, said that she did not put anybody on the roof because it had a sloped roof that would have created a safety concern. I was in Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday with many members of this committee. My fellow member, Carlos Jimenez, who is 70 years old, and I guess he doesn't mind me saying that since he has put that information out there. There's video of him easily transversing the roof, walking across the roof, and even though he is some 50 years older than the shooter. And so my question is, do you agree with the assessment of the former Secret Service director that the roof was so sloped that it created safety concerns?
I can't agree with that statement, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm out of time and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Correa for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank you and the ranking member for putting together the.
Okay, before he gets too far ahead, once again, for anyone who is joining late, I do apologize. My son did have his wisdom teeth taken out, and he is a boy, and we all know their pain tolerance. I had mine taken out. It was no big deal, but apparently it is if they're still in the skin. So he's being high maintenance. So I just apologize for that. But I wanted to look up Mr. Guest real quick and let you know what state he was from, because I want to educate you guys as well. So he is Republican. He was born in 1970 in Woodbury, New Jersey. Let's see, what does it say about? So he has represented at Mississippi's 3rd Congressional District of the United States House of Representatives. I can't speak tonight. Representatives since 2019. So give him coding. Oh my gosh. Ford, you weren't here at the beginning of the stream, but I'll tell you about it in a minute. Anyway, so if you guys are in Mississippi's 3rd District, Congressional District, and you like what he has to say, do more vetting as well, but that's kind of who he is.
The trip to Butler yesterday. Good eye-opening trip. And Colonel Paris, thank you for hosting us out there. I certainly hope that the Secret Service does cooperate with us in our investigation as to what went wrong. Secret Service has to be 100% correct all the time. There's small force, 2,300 plus maybe 1,300. So you local, state, local police officers are the force multiplier. And to hear you say that miscommunication was an element here is unacceptable. We talked earlier to the fact that FirstNet was put together post 911. It's a little bit over 20 years ago. And to hear that we still don't have the technology for people on the ground to talk with each other is of concern. It's even of greater concern to me when I was taking a tour of that farm in Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday. I had local law enforcement officers, local electeds coming to me, whispering to me.
All right. I'm rudely pausing during this, but if the chat's going to make me laugh, I'm going to have to pause and read it out. So Ford over here on Rumble says, it was hot out. Global warming prevented the Secret Service from doing their job. This is an environmental issue for which we need an environmental solution. Amen, guys. For everyone on YouTube, climate change is real. Anyone who says climate change is a hoax and a climate denier is false. The world is warming. And we need to prepare ourselves.
There's more here to the story. We need to talk about what actually happened. To have people that were on the ground there, concerned, afraid of stepping forward is unacceptable. To tell us of other failures that maybe this committee does not know about yet, that were part of what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, is unacceptable. I asked one of the officers, safety officers, could you talk to the Secret Service? Said, no, we can't communicate. Took us 15 minutes to communicate with them. Local elected official who said, I have other stories that I need to talk to you about when you have a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're 4.5 months away from this election. Pennsylvania is a battleground state. You will have these kinds of events again. And to know that we don't have the facts, let alone execute a plan to fix the holes, is unacceptable to our democracy and to our country. We can talk about the facts. The facts are a lot of things went wrong. Let's talk about how to fix it. Fix it now.
Yeah, let's fix it now. Okay. Yes, going forward, they should fix this. If there's something that is planned, is it possible to fix it? I mean, they know how to fix it already. 15 minutes to have a communication between different groups, between the troops and the Secret Service. That is way too much time. It should be instantaneous communication. So Kilo Nov X-Ray over on YouTube says every minute must be logged and initialed by a supervisor thoroughly on an average day without incident. So everything's logged even without an incident. So thank you very much, Kilo Nov. Oh, Kilo November X-Ray. Oh my gosh, I'm slow with these names. Thank you, by the way.
I think we start with accepting the fact that things went wrong and that we need more resources. Colonel Paris, your volunteers, your officers that you put on the line to help the Secret Service, are they actually compensated somewhere for their overtime, their extra time they're out there?
They're in a paid status, yes. They're not, we assign them to those duties, and if they incur overtime as a result of the contract, the contractual bargaining agreement, we pay them.
So let me ask you something in the minute and a half I have left. One of the local officers there, after we spoke a while, I said, well, let me summarize what you just told me. You're asking me who's in charge. And he asked me, yeah, I want to know who's in charge. I said, well, let's talk some more. And he said, Lou, we don't know if it's the campaign or the Secret Service that's in charge here. Said, if I called for a row of dump trucks to be put up behind the stand, it wouldn't happen because the optics would not be good for a campaign rally. I want to know who's in charge.
Oh my gosh, is this Mr. Korea guy? Is he really going to try to blame that the campaign is in charge? And if the campaign wants to have dump trucks set up. Okay, let's say the Secret Service wants to have dump trucks set up to protect the perimeter. He's saying that if the campaign says, hey, those dump trucks look tacky, no, we're not going to put those there. This is where he's going with this. These guys, every time I think one of these Democrats, especially one from California, is going to be rational, they have to put these little digs in there. This is why you have to listen to the entire thing and not clips that people put out on the internet, because there's a lot of little hidden things in there.
Protecting our national candidates. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see if we can ask those tough questions. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is about trying to come up with some rules, protocol to make sure this does not happen again. After the events, we can sit here, we can point fingers at each other and talk about partisanship. It's not going to fix our democracy or electoral system. Mr. Chairman, I do hope we go back and talk to a lot of those folks who are not here today, who wanted to talk, who weren't invited, and a lot of people, even if we invite them, are not going to talk. Because frankly speaking, they want to keep their heads down as the shooting continues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield.
Okay, you guys are killing me tonight over here on Rumble. This is why I like Rumble. So Ford is saying the campaign said they didn't want anyone monitoring that roof, so it's their fault. Trump said keep that roof clear of snipers. Ford, I think you might be onto something there. And then Trump planned the whole thing with a certain group of people. I'm not going to say that out loud. Most grassroots politicians would love to have dump trucks or other blue-collar vehicles in the background. Yeah, most likely. So this is Lou Correa. He is a U.S. representative for California's 46th congressional district since 2017. And I would say California, do better, vote better. I have lots of friends in California, and I love you. Good luck with your state. They are all now moving to Utah, and I can say I dislike you for that. They are destroying my state, and it makes me very angry. So his district is based in Orange County and includes the communities of Anaheim, Santa Ana, and parts of Orange County. And he is part of the Democrat Party. I already said that. Anyway, so this is who this guy is. If you guys would love to vote for him, bless your heart. Do better. Do better, people. Vote for people that are going to stand up for your values. I didn't really feel like he asked any good questions, in my opinion.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Bishop for 5 minutes of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Paris, are you aware whether any law enforcement officer or officers was or were posted in the second floor window of the AGR building?
I am aware, yes, sir.
And what is the answer?
To my knowledge, there were 2 posted there from Butler ESU.
And you said Butler ESU. What does the acronym ESU stand for?
Emergency Services Unit. It's a team that's comprised of multiple agencies that pool resources on a county or several county basis in order to enhance capabilities and training and be able to respond. Basically, a mutual aid agreement is my understanding of it.
Is it sort of like a SWAT team?
They are trained in SWAT tactics, to my knowledge.
So how many ESU officers were posted to that second floor window?
So I am aware that 2 were in the building, but again, I have not seen the Secret Service operations plan.
Do you know, well, you say in the building, were they in a window, where a window out onto the scene?
From briefings that I have been given, I was told they were in a window, yes, sir.
Did they remain on post?
I was told that at a certain point, they began searching along with other local officers in the immediacy after crooks had been identified as suspicious by them.
By them?
My understanding is that they identified crooks for not matriculating. To my knowledge, crooks never made it through the secure perimeter into the venue space itself. That he was identified by those members as suspicious in part because of that. And then at some point, he produced the rangefinder, which heightened that suspicion.
So Representative Crane took a video on site yesterday. I'd like staff to put that up. It's just very short. There's a few seconds. They can do that. If I understand correctly, this is from the second story window of the AGR building. You can see that window comes out from the sash and swings out to the right. There's an aerial photo right after Crooks was killed, where Crooks's body's on the roof, and that window was open. Was it from this vantage point that those ESU officers spotted Crooks?
I don't know that particular window, but my understanding is from a second story window is where he was initially spotted.
Okay, so and are you then saying that, to your knowledge, those ESU officers left the location where they could look out the window to go in search of this person?
That is my understanding.
So sometime before the time between the time he was spotted on the ground and identified as someone suspicious until the shooting, they had left that post to go look for him. Is that what you're saying?
My understanding is yes, along with other municipal officers that responded to that area. And that's based on interviews that we've conducted. And I want to be very clear that I don't want to establish a timeline minute by minute because we don't have that yet.
Here they go again. So the previous day, when they were, so this is on Tuesday. On Monday, they grilled, or I would say questioned, Cheadle. And her whole big thing was not admitting to a timeline. Well, there's a timeline. Well, okay, well, what's the timeline? Well, we can't give you specifics. I don't have the specifics of the timeline filled out or available for you. So to me, that's why can't you have a timeline? It's not that hard to have a timeline. It's been what? So that would have been 11 days after the shooting. It would have been 11 days afterward. They should have a timeline. The fact that they still won't provide any type of a timeline, especially if everyone had an after action report like everyone should do, there should be a timeline. It should be really easy to put it into an Excel spreadsheet and put those in there. Or am I just a crazy woman that just thinks that this is much easier than what they're making it? And maybe don't answer the crazy part.
I think that's revelatory. I haven't heard that information. I did hear before that and there's a local news station. Well, there's a local news station report from July 17 that says that local law enforcement were told they couldn't be responsible for securing the AGR building during the Trump rally. And of course, you've testified a moment ago or earlier in this hearing that it was your understanding from that the meeting with the Secret Service on the site was that ESU was going to handle the AGR building. Which is it? Do you know?
My understanding is what my initial answer was.
Okay. You also, in response to Mr. McCall, you started to say something. You were saying that you did have integrated comms, and you were saying you were deferring to the ongoing investigation, but you have an understanding of the sequence, and then he cut you off and went on to another question. Do you know what you were about to say? Do you remember that?
Just that we had members of PSP inside of the Secret Service command post, and we were maintaining communication with our people.
Had ESU maintained position in that window overlooking the roof, isn't it true that they would have had a clean shot at Mr. Crooks as he was ascending the roof to his shooting position?
I'm not prepared to say that because I don't know the exact timeline of events.
But it's your understanding, though, that they were no longer in that room where they had been previously overlooking the building at the time he was ascending the roof. Is that correct?
Could you repeat that question?
The ESU officers were no longer in that room where they could look out the window and oversee the roof as that video shows.
I believe they were actively searching along with additional municipal officers for Mr. Crooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time's expired.
Gentleman yields on
How would you like that if I talk to you for 3 to 4 minutes and I just talk and I forget to unmute my mic? I think that that is like a really great idea. Can you tell I do X spaces too much because I get in the habit of muting my mic? I just forgot to unmute it. Anyway, I've got a video from Benny Johnson. I believe he is on YouTube as well as X. He may also have a Rumble channel. So go follow him on those places because this is his information. This is his actual footage. He went here, he captured it. So go support these people who do this work. You should always make sure if you're a streamer to give people credit. Let's see. I'm gonna make it big so that you guys can see it. But he actually went on top of the roof and he's gonna walk around, you know, kind of see like how not super sloped it is. Muted Sally just keeps coming back. Yes, I like to do that. You know me. I don't know if he has audio on here. Let's make sure the audio is gonna play. Okay. Make sure I don't have it muted. Nope, I don't have the site muted.
These are the sloped roofs that are so dangerous to the Secret Service. You can see here. Horrible slope. Remember that they couldn't be up here. These nearly completely flat roofs. Yeah. No. These are the sloped
Right.
roofs.
So as you're kind of looking at this too, you can kind of get a visual of what, you know, it looks like from his height, from his perspective. Just kind of like see where his camera is and kind of look around at the surroundings.
That are so dangerous to the Secret Service.
Oh. So over there, I believe, is where everything happened.
You can see here. Horrible slope.
But you guys get a picture of the slope with someone standing on it. So their whole slope theory was bullcrap. And I've also heard the theory that this is another theory going out there that it was too hot. So they were told to stand down. Is that what I heard somewhere? I'm gonna have to keep listening. That's hearsay. I didn't hear that myself. So we'll keep listening. Anyway, there is a thing, guys, when my mic is muted and I start speaking, that does flash. It is actually very helpful. That's how I knew I was muted before I saw you guys respond. So if it's muted and I start speaking, it'll say, mic's muted. If I'm paying attention to my screen, which I was busy pulling up a video at the time, so that's why I missed it. It's Friday night. We're hanging out. We're having a fun time. We're learning about these people in Congress. We're going to learn about who we don't want to vote for. So who was that was just up there? Because I took off his banner. Was that still Mr. Bishop? So that was Mr. Bishop, and you can decide. I didn't look him up. You can decide. I forgot to. Anyway, you got it. Let's go back to this.
Now recognize Mr. Carter.
Thank you,
for
Mr.
5
Chairman.
minutes.
And thank you to our witnesses for joining us today as we convene to discuss the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump and its profound implications on our nation's political landscape. It is imperative that we recognize the growing threats to our homeland. The failure of the Secret Service to protect former President Donald Trump must be thoroughly investigated and addressed to ensure such an incident never happens again. Violence has no place in political discourse, regardless of our philosophical differences, our parties, or our beliefs. We must stand united against such actions and uphold the principles of democracy and respect. What happened on that day was an incredible breach, a threat to our nation because one of our leaders were placed in harm's way. Secret Service has a principal role, and that is to provide protection for our party leaders, whether they're Republican, Democrat, or other. Rather, they are someone that we agree with or someone we disagree with. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's an imperative. And while we all have lots of questions, it appears abundantly clear that the two of you, and while we appreciate you being here, own no responsibility to the breach. And I respect the fact that the questions that are coming to you are very difficult for you to answer because you have limited facts. But I do appreciate your presence. I appreciate your leadership. I appreciate what you do. And for all the men and women in uniform, we thank you for putting your lives on the line to protect us. I will ask this general question. If you were in charge, can you say what you might have done differently?
I would defer to the Secret Service from the standpoint that our expertise in the Pennsylvania State Police is not primarily focused on full-time dignitary protection, sir. I would endeavor generally to try and put whatever resources and partnerships in place to maintain and ensure the safest event we possibly could.
Do you believe that the coordination failed between agencies?
Again, I can only comment on the state police portion at this point. We continue to learn more 10 days in, and I have not seen the Secret Service operations plans.
Mr. Yost, can you join us and share any light in your expertise on
Yes,
where we are and how can we make sure this absolutely never happens again, regardless of who might be at the podium? A president is a president is a president.
I could not agree with you more. In this situation, if I'm speaking on behalf of local law enforcement or state law enforcement, I would say that, again, the primary responsibility of making these calls, making these decisions, and making the operations plans going to be the Secret Service. As I mentioned earlier, there are some 19,000 agencies across this country. It would be impossible to have any continuity or any consistency with what we do in protecting, our leaders. So Secret Service would have to play a huge role in this part. If you're asking me personally what I would have done different, well, obviously I look at an assessment of the situation and look at all of the elevated positions that were in place. They should have been part of a contained area. But that's just my own personal view of not seeing news reports and not physically being on site.
I have never served in any form of law enforcement, but I think I would have figured that that perimeter should have been tighter. I think I could have figured out that there's no way that that building where the shooter sat, laid, and aimed should not have had snipers on top of it as well, negating any opportunity for a shooter to be there. Notwithstanding that there should have been a sweep of the area, we should have had our people on that building as a point of view for our former president. And as I said, a president, a president, a president, a former president, a former president, a former president, a cabinet secretary, a leader. We deserve to have answers to these questions, because when we don't have answers, those who would rather divide
I'm gonna have to stop muting my mic. I was saying, my apologies, guys. This is terrible of me. I was saying that it's not as funny now that I didn't have my mic turned on. It was kind of funny just for a minute. I was saying, here is where he's gonna say, if we don't get answers, then this is when everyone starts to become a conspiracy theorist, right? Well, now there's 2 shooters, there's 3 shooters, blah, 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 right? And then, after Cheadle testified and she finally said, well, yes, this, that. And then she comes out, all of mainstream media is the Secret Service. Cheadle verifies that there was only 1 shooter on the roof. And so anyway, that's where he's going. Maybe he's not. It's got to be a gag at this point. Maybe.
and create theater by saying things that aren't true and they know aren't true, distorting facts and trying to suggest that somehow people played an active role. Listen, the American people deserve the truth. And so I am imploring that we have somebody at these tables that can answer the questions, the good, the tough, the uncomfortable, the comfortable, because the American people deserve to know. This is something that should have never happened. And we as a committee, in a most bipartisan fashion, should stand together to make sure that we send a message always, that we will always protect our leaders, whether we agree with them or not. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize the gentleman from
Well, let's let's make sure, good. I didn't mute. Good. I was eating food because I haven't had dinner yet. And that is why I don't like it when people eat into their mics. It's like nails on a chalkboard. Swallowing and chewing. And I don't know, but it's just me. I will leave a space. I will turn off a show when I hear that because it just drives me nuts, especially if it's repetitive. I can tolerate it for a second. Anyway, guys, if you like Troy Carter, I can't believe there are so many Carters in office. I tried to search Mr. Carter and I got like a bazillion of them, but he is from the District of LA. Was it District of LA? Crap, I went off the site. So he's from California. Yeah, so he is a Democrat from LA. And I want you to, when I clicked on his name, he's got some really fascinating policies. So if you guys are really into Environmental Protection Agency, he is the guy that you really want to vote for. Congressman Carter praises $59.8 million for climate change resilience and coastal hazards. Very good of him. So he has I didn't know, can congressmen put together other climate initiatives in other states for New Orleans? And Congressman Carter, anyway, so he's a Democrat from LA. I was going through his website and that's why I didn't know my mic was muted. So if you guys are someone who's all for that, someone who's going to protect your environment and is going to go after climate change, please vote for this guy.
From Florida, Mr. Jimenez for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Paris, you said the United States Secret Service, Penn State Police was there, Butler ESU was there. Any other law enforcement agency there?
According to the operations plan that PSP put together, there were elements from Butler County Sheriff. Deputy sheriffs were on some of those interior posts, and thus they were on our.
I just need the answer.
I apologize. There are the additional ones that I could name would be Butler County Sheriffs were in our operations plan. Pittsburgh City Police provided assets to the motorcade, and I believe Allegheny County Police also.
You said that you were in the Incident Command Center, that your agency was in the Incident Command Center with the Secret Service.
Yes, sir.
Well, all the other agencies in that command center?
I believe that some of those agencies were represented, but I can't definitively tell you.
We need to find the answer to that. It was Butler ESU in that command center?
I was told at one point that there was a representative in there. How long and over what period, I'm not sure. I'm aware of 3.
So the agency that's in charge of the outside perimeter, actually the agency in charge of the greatest threat, because when you stand at the podium, and I stood there, and when you look, all you had to do is look around. There's the greatest threat right there. It's 100 yards away. It's elevated, direct line of fire to the president. I stood on that roof. No problem standing on that roof. And yes, I am 70 years old. Okay. So the timeline is very important here. If in fact they thought that Mr. Brooks was so suspicious that they actually pulled the ESU counter snipers away, because there were counter snipers, what I understand, and stand in that window, a way to look for him. And from what I understand the timeline, it's about 20 minutes before the president came out. Was that information relayed to the Secret Service, that they were looking for a suspicious individual and that people had been pulled away to look for that suspicious individual? Was that relayed to the Secret Service?
I believe that it was.
And was that relayed to the Secret Service, the team that surrounds the president himself?
I can't answer that.
Well, if it wasn't, that's another big mess up. And I can tell you, this is just one of a bunch of mess ups that I've seen. One of them question that I have is, why in the world was that team from ESU in the building to begin with? Why weren't they on a rooftop? And it was a hot day, right? And so that's another question that I'm going to, why were you assigned inside a building when you have a little window, it's like this big, right? And your line of sight out of that window, unless you stick your head out of the window, is pretty limited. your view. So why were you inside, not outside? Who said for them to be inside and not outside? What did the Secret Service tell you were inside the perimeter, right?
Yes.
For the most part,
You're saying
you were inside the perimeter.
me personally or the?
No, I'm saying your agency was inside
Yes.
the perimeter. But actually the biggest threat was outside the perimeter. And so who developed the plan to protect the outside of the perimeter? There's only one agency. That's the United States Secret Service. Because you really can't ask the local agency to do that because they're not in the business of dignitary protection. They don't do it all the time. You don't do it all the time. They do it all the time. So, Mr. Chairman, we're going to need those other agencies to come in. We need a timeline. Who said what to who, and what the action that was taken. You know, one thing that I noticed in another video, and I've got to find out if it's true, and it appears to be true, is that the snipers on the south side reposition to look to the north side. And I want to know what the timeline for that was. How far in advance were the snipers, the counter snipers on the south side told, hey, you need to look at a threat on the north side? And how much time was there between that and then the shots being fired? Do you have any information on that?
I do not have a specific timeline.
Okay, and those are that's the information that we need. It's not unusual to have people on different frequencies. Actually, you have to because you have so many people, but you have to have everybody in the same place so they communicate with each other. So we need to know if everybody that was in charge or had responsibility for protecting not only the interior perimeter, but outside the perimeter, if they were all in that incident command center. And if they weren't, that's a huge problem too. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Magaziner for 5 minutes.
How's that, guys? I remembered to unmute my mic there. All right, so we have Carlos A. Gimenez, and he is from Florida's 28th Congressional District. He is a Republican who served as mayor of Miami-Dade County from 2011 to 2020. He served as a Miami-Dade County Commissioner from 2003. Okay, we don't need to know his history too much. He did vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016, but in 2020, he ran as a supporter of President Donald Trump and was endorsed by him. He is originally from Cuba. He was born in Havana, Cuba, which is very interesting. In 1954, to ranchers from the Oriente province in 1960. Interesting. In the wake of the Cuban Revolution, settling in what became Miami, Little Havana. When I push play, I'm going to have to save that name. Carlos A. Gimenez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first, I just want to join my colleagues from both sides of the aisle earlier who recognized the tremendous legacy of our colleague, Sheila Jackson Lee, who I feel very fortunate to have had even just a year and a half to work with on this committee. She always came prepared. She was diligent. She brought empathy and was a great example to us newer members. So I'm very grateful for her legacy, and I know it will live on for a long time to come. And I also join my colleagues on both sides in condemning the assassination attempt on former President Trump and condemn all acts of violence. Violence is not the answer. Our condolences go out to the family of Corey Comparator and all who were injured and traumatized by what occurred that day. And I think about the children who were at that event and had to witness that. And that is something they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. We don't know the motivation of the shooter at this time, but I remain concerned by the rising tide of political violence and domestic violent extremism in this country, which impacts all of us. This is something that some of us have been talking about a lot in this committee. In 2023, the U.S. Capitol Police investigated more than 8,000 cases of direct threats against members of Congress, a tenfold increase from 2015. And so I ask everyone, take down the rhetoric, remove violent rhetoric from our political discourse, remember, as President Lincoln said, that we are not enemies but friends, and we have to appeal to the better angels of our nature. And yes, we have to make sure that this never happens again. It is welcome news that the director of the Secret Service has resigned, but if we say that that is enough, then we're not doing our jobs. We need to understand what protocols, policies, resources need to be changed, if any, to make sure this does not happen again. Colonel, I wanted to ask, I imagine the Pennsylvania State Police deals with lots of events like this, right? You have lots of political events, big events, Secret Service protectees who come in and out of Pennsylvania. So can you just help us understand, is it unusual to have such a small perimeter around an outdoor event like this one?
I would say that we routinely, as a matter of course, exercise deference to the Secret Service to set the perimeter for an event like this based on the protectee.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that Pennsylvania is a state where anyone 18 and above can carry a firearm like an AR-15 without a license. It's an open carry state. And so my second question is, outside of that perimeter, were there any controls in place or any, legal tools that you had at your disposal if an individual with a firearm had been spotted, again, within 300, 400 yards of the former president?
I would defer to the Secret Service. I haven't seen their operations plan, sir.
Right, but you as state police and then also the Butler local police who were responsible for areas outside of the perimeter, if this individual had been spotted earlier with a firearm because it is an open carry state, what legal tools would you have had at your disposal?
So we would have responded and attempted to make contact and ascertain what the person was doing there and what their activity was.
Yeah. So a number of us have asked questions about lines of communication, and I think that's important, right? Because to the layperson at home, what we're trying to understand is if this individual was spotted on the roof, as he appears to have been well over a minute before the shooting, did the local officers who spotted him know how to radio into the command center? Was that information relayed? And then was it in turn relayed to the Secret Service? This question has been asked a few different times, but can you tell the public what you know about whether local officers outside the perimeter knew how to radio in a suspected threat, whether there was an individual in the command center who was receiving those calls and communicating them to the Secret Service?
So I do know that Butler County set up a command post on the site itself, along with the Secret Service's command post, but they were not located in the same building. The exact communication between municipal officers and that command post or the county dispatch that they would rely on. The state police have our own statewide dispatching. We can communicate with the dispatching centers telephonically and through electronic means, but we maintain separate dispatching systems. So I would defer to
So the locals were not included in the Secret Service command center. The state police was or was not?
the PSP. I can assure you the PSP was in there.
Yeah.
Additional people, I was briefed on one occasion that there was a representative from Butler ESU that was in there. When they were in there and the length is not really a focus at this point of our investigation into the homicide and the attempted 2 homicides, as well as the officer-involved shooting. So that sequence of events has come up pursuant to us investigating that, but I am very remiss to give you a minute-by-minute timeline and what the communications were.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Pfluger for 5.
Did anybody catch did he even answer anything new? Let's see. I hope Vivek Ramaswamy gets the job of swamp eliminator. That would be nice. Kilo November X-ray. For instance, the general and these men probably shook hands before. Hand the general, understanding he was going to look like a fool, but drinks and steaks are going, they shake hands, everything's talked about, and they'll go to dinner and drinks and steaks afterwards, is what I kind of think you're trying to say. Yeah, because the public needs to see us taking this seriously because it is an election year, guys, which I am sure that most of you guys all know that it's an election year. So we have this amazing representative, Seth Magaziner, which I never heard of this name before. He is in the 2nd Congressional District in Rhode Island. He is a member of the Democrat Party, and he previously served as the 31st General Treasurer of Rhode Island from 2015 until 2023. Magaziner won the November 2022 election to succeed retiring Representative James Langevin. Anyway, guys, while I was listening, I got to stop looking at these guys and just listen to what they're saying because I'm missing some key pieces. I know that I am. So I'm going to probably just focus on that for a minute. But I went through and you can see all the caucuses they are on, the committees they're on. I'm like, okay, this is a Democrat. But we already knew that. Half these people are showboating. I want it to be like it was on Monday when they were questioning Cheadle. I want some real tough questions asked, and I don't want them asking the same questions. Can't they figure out how to not ask the same question over and over again? Maybe it's a tactic or they got cameras going. I don't know. This is frustrating though.
5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My deepest sympathies to the family of Sheila Jackson Lee. We worked very closely together on many things. And she was an excellent member of this committee. I agree with my colleague, Mr. Carter, when he talked about Americans deserve the truth. I absolutely agree with that. And also Mr. Magaziner talking about Republicans and Democrats working together on the oversight. Imagine if we worked together, the transparency that we could have on so many other issues that are going on right now. And I believe that that is possible for us to do. Thank you both for being here. Colonel Paris, was it clear to you when we talk about rules of engagement, deconfliction plans, the assignments of which law enforcement agency will cover which section? Did you have concerns prior to the president coming on stage? And if so, did you voice those concerns to the Secret Service?
So just to be clear, I was not present at the venue on July 13th.
But in the planning and the lead up,
Planning, my default position would be that our commanders are aware of what their responsibilities are within a unified command structure reporting to the Secret Service.
And do you believe that it was absolutely clear that there were zero questions of who was supposed to cover what areas of the venue?
I can only comment to our responsibilities, and I believe our responsibilities were delineated to us, and I believe we met or exceeded those responsibilities based on everything that I know as I sit here 10 days in.
I think there's still a lot of questions regarding the plan,
Agreed.
And this is always in any sort of protection assignment. That's always the hardest thing. Who are friendly assets? Who could be a vulnerable hostile actor? Who displays hostile intent, hostile act? I think it's clear there was a failure, and we definitely want to get to the bottom of it. President Yost, do you get the impression that Secret Service at any point in the run-up to this or other events has been stretched thin when it comes to just the work hours that they are putting in, the resources that they have? Was that communicated in any way?
Well, I can't speak directly to that. I can tell you that law enforcement across this country is stretched thin, just simply due to the inability to be able to attract the best and the brightest at
Hold on just a minute. Okay, hold on for what now? Why is law enforcement spread thin, guys? He's saying because they can't attract the best and the brightest. Why can't they attract the best and the brightest? Is it because in 2020 they went through and their whole entire goal, along with Kamala Harris, going and bailing out people from the 2020? I'm gonna say it. This is a swear word moment. Shit show, right? You don't think that maybe it's because they defunded the police? You don't think that maybe whatever? And I'm not buying this. We were spread thin. This is the former president of the United States. They could have told Jill Biden not to go to this cafe and have a rally, and I'm not saying that she did, but This is an excuse. This is bullcrap. If they don't have enough personnel and you have the former president of the United States, who is the leading candidate, you bring in the resources necessary to defend him. And if you don't have a game plan, why do they keep saying that? Why do they keep saying that they don't have a timeline? They don't know who's supposed to be where and where not. Bullcrap. They have it. Who are they covering for? That's what I want to know. I want to know who they're covering for. The problem is I don't believe that these people who did this believe that Donald Trump was going to win or not win. He was going to survive. He did. They screwed up. And now they had the perfect plan of how they were going to cover everything up. They probably already had all the evidence. It was going to be nice, easy. They were going to blame it on Iran. That's the whole entire reason why we've had people come from other countries come to the United States, stage rallies. There's evidence of people being dropped off in vans at those rallies. So they stage these rallies, say, look how bad. If you guys don't support the World War III and send us money, guns, and weapons, then your country is going to be just like those writers out there everywhere, right? They had a plan, and their plan was to blame Iran. And that was going to be their window to go into war for World War III. And they were going to get all of us on board because we've been like, heck yeah, it was Iran. Okay, maybe it is Iran. My personal belief is it's not. I think it's a smokescreen. That is me. Please do your own research. This is something you have to do your own research on. Go out and find different places, different sources. This is my opinion. And I'm not responsible for how you guys think. I'm only responsible to how I think. All right. Sorry. This guy just pissed me off. I'm so sick of people blaming incompetency on lack of law enforcement because it's their fault. They defunded them nationwide. I'm sure they have that money in some other fund somewhere else that's doing absolutely freaking nothing.
At any levels in order to maintain the staffing levels we need. So if that is the case and we're not meeting those levels in Secret Service because of our inability to be able to recruit, then we need to address that. Or if it's the alignment of assets and the assignment of individuals, then that in itself is something as well. And it's something I'm not in a position to be able to speak about, other than to recognize that there's two huge factors here that need to be addressed.
Well, it's clear that that's the case. And God bless both of you for what you do, for the hours that you put in to protect our communities. And we can't do it without you, and we need you, and we will continue to advocate for you. I want to talk about now that leads me into this next question. There's a piece of legislation, HR 8081, called the Disgraced Act. It says denying infinite security and government resources allocated towards convicted and extremely dishonorable former protectees act, which is a whole mouthful of basically taking details away from people that could include those who are convicted. Talk to me about the impact if former President Trump didn't have a protective detail of U.S. Secret Service there. Talk to me about the impact on state and local partners to protect them in any of the communities that you represent. And by the way, he also was responsible for taking out al-Baghdadi, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and Qasem Soleimani, and the Iranian government wants to do harm to him and other people like him. So what's the impact if you don't have Secret Service help?
More than happy to you. So I think, we're trying not to become very political in this. I think we have a president.
We're trying not to become very political in this. Bullcrap. Yes, they're not supposed to be political. Yes, that is the goal. Listen to guys. I told everybody clear back. I think it was in January when they started having ships and they were blaming everything. And they might have been the Houthis. I wasn't out there. I didn't see it with my own eyes. But ever since January, February of last year, they've been trying to go into a war with Iran. But that is my speculation. My speculation is that they're trying to go to war with Iran. And they were going to do that by funneling money to Ukraine with our weapons. They were going to antagonize Putin. And I'm not a Putin lover, so nobody sit and tell me I'm a Putin lover. I'm looking at this from a logical point of view, going back to 2014 when we we performed a coup in Ukraine. We performed a coup in Ukraine under Obama. And I don't know how many leaders we've placed to run that country. Zelensky definitely is one of them that we put in that position of power. And their whole goal was to bring NATO to Ukraine, which is a red line in the sand. That's a red line in the sand. Okay. I don't want any Ukrainians dying. I don't want any Russians dying. I am anti people dying in war. I am tired of United States people giving weapons to other people so that they can play these little world war games, Game of Thrones, right? This is a big, huge Game of Thrones. And the goal is one world government, in my opinion. You can do your own research. I've done lots of research on this that I have facts and data to back it up. So Ukraine, you bring NATO in there, antagonize Russia, which pisses them off. And the people of where Russia went in to invade begged him. They went to him and begged him to help because they were dying. They were dying at the hands of the Ukrainian government. There's all kinds of different narratives out there. I've tried to stay out of the Ukraine Russia thing. I've tried to stay out of the Palestine and Israel thing because they're inflammatory topics. So they're things that you have to do research. And I believe that they were wanting to go, they want this war and they want to go after Iran. Iran is rich in lots of great farmland for growing heroin. It also has got lots of other resources. So just listen, pay attention. Okay. I'm not telling you how to think. These are my opinions, but I want you to pay attention how many times they say Iran. Last year, they were saying the name Iran constantly, especially with the Israel-Gaza stuff, okay? We have their leader, Netanyahu, come to our country and pretty much say, it's Iran, it's Iran, it's Iran. If Iran would have succeeded in killing the president, that would have been World War III, right? And if you don't give us aid and we don't end this war and we don't demolish Gaza right now, then your country is going to be just like these riots. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but everything just seems very pre-calculated, pre-planned. These people are not stupid. They think months, they think years ahead. Yes, A Good Life says you're correct. All of this is backed up and funded by evil people, sorry, I was going to censor the word, but I'm not going to. Evil globalist entities, US, Canada, UK, Australia, have been infected by these parasites most. Yes, the whole world is infiltrated by evil people, 100%. And their goal is, in my research, my opinion, do your own research. I've done lots of videos on this in other places. I go into great detail. But you yourself have to make up your mind. And I'm going to get off my soapbox, but I just want you guys to pay attention to the Iran. I want you to pay attention to who says it. And right now they're pushing it really hard. They want a World War III. Or they want something bad to happen on U.S. soil so they can bring in martial law, so they can stop our elections. Nothing has worked. They've gone after Trump through lawsuits, through lawfare. They've done it through smear campaigns. They've done everything to try to ruin his reputation. Then they're like, well, Biden did so bad, he has to go. Then there's an attempt on his life. They didn't succeed. So they've tried everything. What's next? I don't know. But I'll tell you what does concern me is that we're missing, I can't remember how many tons of ammonium nitrate. And I'll tell you what, Trump moving his rallies inside a building causes me great concern. And I'm not sure that I have said that out loud, but it causes me concern. And I'm not trying to put that energy out there. But I would much rather be at an outdoor venue if one of those things just happened to be created to make something like a bad device that could hurt people. So there you go, censorship for YouTube. For those who are on Rumble and who are on X, I hope you're smart enough to, figure things out. There are three main groups that have signed into bilateral agreements attached to billions of dollars, whomever will sign on. Yes. Yep. Anyway, let's get back to this. I apologize. I just want to make sure you guys are paying attention to the Iran thing. And if you have a big creator, say on X, or you have a big YouTuber they're pushing this whole Iranian narrative, if they're going along with it, they're not thinking logically. They're either supporting someone or they're easily brainwashed and they're not stepping outside the box and thinking for themselves. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying with everything that's on the table, that seems where it's going. Good night, Digits. Thanks for being here. And I just want to take a moment, guys, and thank everyone. I've got about 620 people watching on a Friday night with all kinds of people streaming. So I want to thank those. That's on X alone. I'm not sure how many are over on Rumble. I've got at least, let's see. Currently, I have 25 watching over on Rumble. And then on YouTube, I don't have YouTube pulled up. I just want to say thank you guys for being here. There's lots of choices that you can go to and you can listen to other people speak. I try to bring a different point of view. I want to be truthful, speak facts, and I want you to make your guys' own decisions. I want you to think for yourself. Don't let people tell you how to think. You're smart. Think logically. You folded 8 loads of laundry. Oh, I have laundry to do tomorrow. I'll check my EDMs in 3 seconds for it. I promise. Just give me 1 second. As soon as I push play, I'm going to go check it and I'll pull up that thing that you were telling me about. Yeah, anyway, here we go. I almost forgot to put it back up on the screen.
In the United States who has, by simple virtue of his position, having served as president, that deserves a certain protection because of his service to the country. So the rest of these things are all things that are not for me to decide, other than to tell you that I think we have a responsibility to our leaders.
This is not political. That's not political. He deserves protection. You're absolutely
agree.
right.
I agree.
Colonel Paris?
I would just echo that my understanding is it's a federal statute that creates the Secret Service and tasks them with those responsibilities. So to contemplate a different paradigm, I would reflect back to the legislature to contemplate
If
something.
he was denied a protective detail in Pennsylvania this past week, the weekend prior, what would that have done to your local resources to protect him adequately?
I think the removal of any resource inherently makes the burden on the surrounding resources that would have been committed somewhat additional.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
Still Life, who is over on YouTube. You know I love you. I'm just going to say this right now. I like free speech, and I think that people should be able to say what they want. However, I do still like my YouTube channel, and I want to continue to stream over on this platform when I'm talking about topics that I don't have to censor my words too much. So be careful. I don't know what things are triggered. The rules are changing all the time. I did get a strike, so please be careful of the things that you put in the chat. And you know I love you, and you know I love free speech. So take that. If you want to speak more freely, you can go over to X or you can go over to Rumble. I'm not saying to do that because YouTube is a great platform and you should definitely stay on and chat there. But those are options to you.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Gentleman's recognized.
So I appreciate the gentleman's question, but let me put it another way to the witnesses. The reference legislation.
Mr. Ranking Member, I mean, a question to the witness would be someone yielding to you. A point of order, I'm allowing you to make a point of order.
Thank you. Well, the point of order is if you read the bill, it says that if you are a convicted felon and found and sentenced by a judge,
Mr. Chairman.
then you would not be, that's my point of order, that you would not have service. You have to be a convicted felon and sentenced. Now, at the time the bill was filed, nobody who was a protectee was a convicted felon. But if those who are lawyers here know that once you are a convicted felon and sentenced, you are remanded the custody of that particular law enforcement agency for custody. I think it's an anomaly to try to say that the Secret Service would have to protect a felon in jail, a convicted felon. So this whole notion about my legislation, I just say to the gentleman, if you read it, it says you have to be a convicted felon and sentenced. Now, we're not there. The conjecture, you can do whatever you want. But let me be clear about the bill. Republicans have made a lot of hay about the bill, saying it's about former President Trump and would take away his security. That just is not true. The bill doesn't mention former Trump, President Trump, and it would not have affected security at this tragic event. The bill talks about any Secret Service protectee who is convicted of a felony and sentenced to serve jail time. And it does not take away security. The bill makes clear that when a protectee is sentenced and remanded to the custody of prison officials, the Secret Service is able to hand off the prisoner in an orderly fashion, and that Secret Service agents aren't forced to become correctional officers too. That's the legislation. That's all it says. For the record, we can go back to.
The gentleman will need to get to his point of order. And
well, point of
so we can
order
move on.
is the.
Okay, are you guys buying what he's saying right now? We don't mention a President Trump in this bill. Okay, what other person at all that's in office are they trying to pass this bill for? Is it for Hillary Clinton? Is it for Obama? Like who are they passing this bill for? That they will deliver the person to prison and they don't have to stay and work and be a corrections officer. This is a bunch of garbage. But we're listening to this because these are the people who are running our country and making decisions for us. That is Mr. Thompson, guys, if you want to know who he is. That's bullcrap. And President Trump has not been sentenced. Therefore, he is actually not a convicted felon. And that charge has been delayed for, the sentencing has been delayed for how long? I don't know, indefinitely. The one in Florida, the documents case, postponed indefinitely. The Georgia case with lying Fannie Willis has been totally destroyed. Like, how many ways? Anyway, okay. I apologize.
Line of question is inconsistent with the legislation. And it does not say on that day, former President Trump would have been without Secret Service protection. He is not sentenced. If he's not sentenced, he will still have the protection. Plain and simple.
So you yield on your point of order, Mr. Ranking Member? You did. Okay. I want to make a point of order then as well. And, a lot of times we hear from both sides of the aisle about rhetoric and how rhetoric and the things we do in messaging bills that we do shapes discussion, impacts people. And first, my point of order is prison isn't necessarily a safer place. You can ask Mr. Epstein's family about that. And so to suggest that somehow you'd have the security necessary in a prison, I think is just not an accurate statement. In terms of, I agree with the ranking member that his bill did say that.
Oh, so Benjamin Ben, you are dropping firebombs in here. Yes, he said it's not about Trump, but uses an example for Trump. Yes, he uses an example exactly like Trump, an example for Trump. Listen to how these people use word games. They use word games to lie to you. They sound like they're being truthful because they're saying all the right things. It's a huge form of manipulation. You have to look at what they're not saying, and you have to look at how they word things to get around what they're really actually saying.
That it would not apply in this particular case, but it's more about what we're doing and what we're saying at certain times that generates the attitude in our society. And so I just make that point of order about this particular legislation. I made in my opening remarks a request that he withdraw the bill.
Mr. You just have a second. I just wanted to make a quick comment. I think the chairman was clear that this bill was filed well in advance. So to connect, you mentioned timing. It's important to mention timing that
This bill was filed so far in advance that there's no way that this is about Mr. President. However, they've been hatching this little scheme to go after President Trump for quite some time. Right? So you're wrong in thinking the way that you're thinking right now, right? All of these cases, they could have filed these cases a long time ago. This has been a backup plan for a very long time. Listen to how they're going to word things again and lie to us, to our faces.
it wasn't.
Well, we don't want to debate the bill. We're here to hear from witnesses that are here. So I'm going to go ahead and end this now, and we're going to move on. And I think actually, Mr. Ivey is up for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to associate myself with the remarks of our members here with respect to the loss of Miss Jackson Lee. It's with deep sadness that I feel her loss. I share not only this committee with her, but on the Judiciary Committee as well. And she was insightful.
She was insightful, and she was dropping text after text, or post after post after post after post on X, slamming Trump all night long, up until the time she died, to the point where she didn't have family around because she was too busy being on X, slamming everybody. And yes, Miss Jackson, I wish that you rest in peace, and I do pray for your family because you were still a person.
And inspirational in the way she handled herself and her role here in Congress. I also want to join with the comments about sympathies to the comparator family and the individuals who were injured on the day of the shooting. And I want to thank the chair for taking us up to Butler yesterday. My only regret about it was that it was too quick. And I think that, and I didn't know it was going to be like that, frankly, until after we got there and had a chance to talk to people in the community. But when we got there, they were very anxious to talk to us. In particular, I had conversations with Angela Flieger, supervisor for, and I hope I don't butcher this too bad, Connequenessing Township, who was extremely helpful, and Sam Zerzolo, who was a commissioner from Butler Township. And they were able to provide information on several fronts that I think we need to pay attention to, not just for this particular event, but going forward. Could you hit a video for me there? I think Ms. Flieger tried to produce this and send it to me. The red building is the one that was directly behind the stage. The building in the center there was where the shooter was. The reason I'm asking for this to be shown is that as you get past the middle of it, look to the opposite side of the field from where the shots came. Oh, you can stop it now. I counted about 12 rooftops there, just sort of standing at the front. I'm a former federal prosecutor. I don't have a background.
Okay, Benjamin Ben, you're killing me tonight. Benjamin Ben on YouTube says, Sheila's cause of death should be TDS. You guys all know what that means. Trump derangement syndrome. Now Benny Thompson can say Trump killed her. That's a good one. Thank you. Thank you for the laugh. I needed that.
And protection. But my thought was, why would we pick a spot where you had that many rooftops that were available? And my colleague, Mr. Crane, I definitely defer to your experience as a sniper in the military, and your point about picking the water tower as a higher point would have been a good one, I think, to consider. And I'm curious about finding out what the Secret Service would say about that. But I just thought that this was a bad site to pick, no matter where you put them. There was just too many openings. The field was totally open. And one of the things that Ms. Flieger pointed out was that the road that went to the side of this spot here, the stage was right in front of those two buildings. The snipers were on top of those, I believe. They didn't shut down that road. And she also showed me a photo of her husband going in on that day through a fence that wasn't guarded in the perimeter area. Another point that she made was that the night before the speech was done, she and 50 or 60 other people from the community came to decorate the stage and, put up the red, white, and blue blending and the Trump signs and everything. But the point she had there was that none of those people were vetted before they went into the area and were up at the stage and, could have done anything, I think was the point that she made. And also noted that apparently the shooter had hidden the gun somewhere on the site by, I think, where I hate to call the name of the business, but the business where the shooter ended up taking the shots from. So I think there's a variety of concerns here that I look forward to getting a chance to hear from these individuals. I don't know if it's going to be in the context of this committee or the oversight committee or the task force that's been proposed. Whoever does it needs to go talk to these folks, because the ones that I talked with had not been interviewed by the FBI, Secret Service, or local police. And they have key information that I think we should have, especially in making decisions about going forward. And then just a couple quick points before my time runs out. I think it came up with respect to the communications piece. I appreciate Mr. Yoi's comments there, but we need to figure out not just what happened on that day, but when we do these at other sites across the country going forward, what's going to happen with the communications? And if they're not using the national bandwidth that was set up, how can we make sure that that happens in the future? And then with respect to the local police not reinventing the wheel every time, one of them suggested, maybe some kind of clearinghouse or information where local police departments, local elected officials, who, for example, in this instance, didn't find out the president was coming until a few days before, and therefore had to scramble to catch up. I believe she called your office, Congressman Kelly, to figure out what was going on. And
Okay, hold on. They did not know until a couple of days before the event that Donald Trump was going there. A couple days before. They have a cell phone triangulation. They have cell phone evidence. I have a video. Is it a video or a post on this? I'll have to go find it. But it shows where this kid went. Crooks. Thomas Crooks. Thomas Matthew Crooks is the person who they said the alleged shooter, right? They knew about, he'd been there, the day before and 10 days before. I'll have to look up the timeline. They show through, I guess when you're on your cell phone, you know how they give you like Google ads and stuff like that? So they are able to go through and trace the Google ads, kind of see where they showed up on this device or whatnot. So they're able to trace his location. And that's my understanding of how they were able to come up with this data. If they only knew about him coming 2 days before, how did Crooks know when he was going to come? Does Trump have someone in his office that is leaking information? Because how else would they know? Because I'm sure Trump was planning on going there. However, he didn't make it known to the people beforehand. That raises a big concern. And I haven't heard anyone ask this question yet. Maybe they have. I wouldn't change it for the world, especially after, yes, months of snow. I don't know. I hate summer laundry. So much of it anyway. But anyway, that's a good question. Days before, does he have a leak inside his circle of people? Or because, okay, I got to pull up this timeline. Someone is leaking this, and it has to be someone close to Trump or someone that would know that this event was going to happen. Because I'm assuming that he knows. And there's a reason why they don't tell people weeks in advance that you're going to go to a site, because that makes it too easy for people to plan stuff like this. That, or maybe they are, oh my gosh, or maybe they are still monitoring his private communications like they did in 2020 and in 2016. Holy crap. Holy crap. And yes, there is a Black Rock video with the shooter from the high school that he was in that they try to scrub for the internet, but the internet lives forever. And I'm not going to show that on here because I don't know what I can put up on this other forum called YouTube. But tonight we're doing it on all 3 platforms because I have it streamed here for a minute.
You hadn't even been told about it yet. So we need to get to a point where we've got better communication, that we're giving elected officials and law enforcement at the local and state level more lead time and more information so they can prepare for these events. And I know that the director has resigned, but I think it's critical to make sure that we go forward with the investigation of the Secret Service, whether she's there or not. And then the last point, I apologize for running over, is that to the Secret Service and to Homeland Security, I know there's going to be a process now to replace her, but that cannot get in the way of us sorting out what happened on that day, and more importantly, what we need to take forward, because we've got other events coming up in the very near future. We got to make sure we take those lessons quickly, and so we can move them forward. And I thank the chair for his deference for giving me a little time to run over there, and I thank you again for taking us up to Butler.
You were making an excellent point, and I didn't want to stop you, Mr. Ivy. I now recognize Mr. Garbarino, the gentleman from New York, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Colonel Paris, there have been conflicting reports about the location of state and local law enforcement. Secret Service Director, I believe, said that, former Secret Service Director said that local police were in the same building that the gunman fired from, while other accounts indicate that local law enforcement was in an adjacent building. Were any Pennsylvania state troopers, state police assigned to the building where the shooting happened?
There were no state troopers, to my knowledge, assigned there, sir.
Do you know if any other local law enforcement were assigned inside that building?
I only know that Butler ESU were assigned. When you say that building, I'm referring to there's a series of buildings there that have covered walkways or second-story walkways that allow you to, it's almost like a pole barn type configuration, a modular type building. But to my knowledge, there were no troopers assigned to that location, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Yos, as technology has evolved, drones have become widely available to both law enforcement and the general public. For a large event with this level of security, would you normally expect law enforcement to use drones for surveillance and deploy counter-drone technology?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Would you normally expect law enforcement to use drones for surveillance and deploy counter-drone technology?
Well, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, I just, my experience at this location is there are a number of elevated locations that should have been secured. There are a lot of ways to secure that. They could be with individuals assigned to it, but certainly an overwatch to be able to get a good visual of those locations is paramount.
So it's been reported that the Secret Service apparently did not use drones for surveillance, but the shooter was able to fly his own drone over the area earlier on the day of the rally and get aerial footage of the site. Do you know if that's true?
I have no direct knowledge.
Were you, okay, so, and you know if whether or not local, state, Secret Service enforcement was aware of any drone use?
I've heard the news reports, but I have no direct knowledge.
Would you consider this a major security breach?
Absolutely.
Now, it's also been reported, Colonel Paris, that the local law enforcement spotted the shooter outside the AGR building and on its roof minutes prior to the shooting. Did local police alert the Secret Service that the gunman was on or around the AGR building roof? Do you know?
So this goes to my earlier qualifier about the timeline, but my understanding of the sequence of events is that he was determined to be suspicious as a result of behavior that he was exhibiting, milling around that area in front of the AGR building. There was a text thread that was going, I've been briefed, between the ESU members. They identified, they took a photo of him. At some point when he utilized the rangefinder, the suspicion was heightened. So I know at a certain point in the command post, a member of PSP received a phone call and a text message from members of ESU. And I know from an interview that that was immediately relayed in the command post to the Secret Service.
And what happened? Yeah. So that was my next question. So what happened? What actions were taken after it was relayed to Secret Service?
So when the PSP member received that information and verbally turned right around, gave it to the Secret Service, our member was provided with a number to which the picture that had been taken by the Butler ESU members, or that was on that group thread, to which that should be sent. Our member did that, and our understanding was that was some element of the Secret Service.
So this was all reported. Yeah, this was all reported to Secret Service, and they gave him, Secret Service then sent him back, one of your officers, a number back to send the information back to. Is that what you just said?
That's my understanding.
When did that happen?
Again, the actual timeline, I'm very remiss because I know these timelines need to be hammered out exactly to the minute, but I would say, that the overall timeline is about an hour before is when he became suspicious to ESU. What I want to say is, if we know that former President Trump was shot at 11 hours, it was probably in the vicinity of 25 to 30 minutes, but I want to make sure that's a very...
So it was before he went on to speak.
But at that point, just to be clear, he was determined to be suspicious. There was no information that he possessed a weapon. He was outside of that building where the ESU was posted. They were being vigilant. It's, I think, relevant that there were other people at the venue who were suspicious and reported likewise in a close temporal nexus to that as well.
But just to confirm, the Secret Service had this information that there was a suspicious individual. He had used a rangefinder, which made him even more suspicious. And this was all reported to them prior to the President Trump being allowed on the stage to speak?
I believe, again, I'll defer to when the president came out. I know that was probably 20 to 25 minutes before 11 hours. And steps were taken by the municipal officers over in that area they were actively looking for crooks. You saw the building yesterday. That's a pretty wide footprint. They began looking for him. There were scores of people making their way across that facility. Again, just for some context, there were over 100 people that day that necessitated or were requiring medical attention due to the heat. There was a missing 6-year-old. This individual was deemed to be suspicious because he was walking around and not moving into the venue. The rangefinder obviously heightened that, and they were attempting to locate him as people were moving across that space who were attending the event to the secure perimeter.
Was he the only one determined to be suspicious that day?
The gentleman needs to wrap it up,
Oh, he
and
was-
perhaps
he was
somebody
there.
else will yield to you or me
I yield back.
on this topic. I recognize Mr. Goldman now for 5 minutes.
Or we'll just pick up the questioning here.
That sounds great, prosecutor.
First, I do want to mention how sad it is to see Sheila Jackson Lee's empty seat there. What an incredible inspiration to so many of us, and a great member and advocate, community presence, and we really are sorry to miss her. She would be very eager to be asking questions here today, because there are a lot of unanswered questions, and I sat through a 4.5-hour hearing yesterday with the director of the Secret Service, and we got no information. So I'm going to jump on, piggyback off of Mr. Garbarino. Where you left off is that you relayed, or PSP relayed, the photograph to the number that the Secret Service directed your officer to. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, did anything come back? Any instructions, directions come back from the Secret Service?
So again, that is left to the after action. We're trying to come up with a sequence of events that led to crooks on top of the building where he ultimately took the shots. So
Right, but you said, I'm trying to find, I don't need the specific timeline. I'm trying to just figure out the sequence, because you said that many of your officers, or Butler ESU officers, were looking for crooks. That was after that photograph was relayed to the Secret Service?
My understanding was after the photo was relayed to the our trooper in the command post, and yes, Crooks was in that area around the building. My understanding is 2 additional municipal officers who were on a different post responded to that area, and they began actively looking for Crooks. They circumvented, or they circumscribed the building to try and locate him. It became apparent at some point that he was up on the roof. Those 2 municipal officers who responded then, to their credit, actively, once they realized that he was on the roof. One boosted the other one up, hanging from the ledge of the roof. By the time that officer was boosted up on top of the roof, Crooks was on it, almost in that final position that you saw. He had the AR out, and he pointed it at the municipal officer who, suspended from the roof, was not in a position, feet dangling at that point, to draw a weapon or continue hoisting himself back up on the roof. He drops back down from the roof. And at this point, I believe that's when the video that's been widely circulated with people filming Crooks up on the roof, saying there's somebody up on the roof. There were other law enforcement around the building running, but their vantage point on the ground did not lend a clear line of sight to where Crooks was at the top of that building. One of our troopers on roving patrol also was notified. That word went out, and he responded about the time that the municipal officer was boosting the other officer up onto the roof.
What was he notified of?
I don't know specifically. That's going to be part of the after action. But we obviously knew that Crooks was suspicious. He had not gone into the venue, and they were actively doing everything they could to try and locate him.
So the local officers who were outside of the perimeter in charge of securing the outside perimeter area, one way or another, understood or got direction that they needed to try to find Crooks, presumably to ask him questions, interview him. Is that what the protocol is?
Clear about, I don't want to speak for I haven't seen the Secret Service operations plan, what their responsibilities were and what their understanding of those were from the Secret Service. I don't want to comment on it.
But somehow they got the message.
Somehow there was
knew.
information that he was suspicious. By the time that municipal officer was hoisted up onto the roof and saw him, he had the weapon out.
Do you know how long it was between the time that the photograph was relayed to the Secret Service and the time when the officer was trying to hoist himself onto the roof?
So that's a critical, detailed, salient question. I would answer it from the reverse time period, from if the first shots rang out at 18:11 hours. The hoisting up of the officer occurred probably no more. Again, I'm going to give you a time, but I want to just put it.
We understand
it's
not specific.
Of a sequence of events. I would say at most 2.5 to 3 minutes before that first shot rung out. Right.
And when
what they were notified in the interim still remains under investigation.
Right. And when he fell off of he let go?
The municipal officer, when the briefing that I had was the municipal officer saw Crooks saw him, and Crooks turned and leveled the gun at him in a position tactically of extreme disadvantage, suspended, in the air with your legs dangling after somebody had boosted you up.
And he let go, right?
He let go and he fell back down.
And was there at that point any communications that there's a shooter on the roof from the municipal officers who were there?
That's all part of the after action. We're just trying to get a sequence of events up to the point when Crooks then fired the weapon. So that's been the focus of our investigation.
But there was at least, you said you thought 2.5 to 3 minutes between the time when the municipal officers tried to hoist on top of the roof, Crooks pointed the gun at them, they dropped, and then between that time and when he fired the shots.
I don't want to give you an exact period of time, but it was minutes. It was a very short period of time, even for his ability.
But not seconds.
I cannot give you an exact period of time, because if I were to do such a thing, then I would be, then it'd be really hard to change my story later. So right now I've got to be really vague so we can make our official, non-official timeline, so that as you continue to ask more questions, we can continue to lie to the public people. Very interesting. And I'm going to read a couple of comments from Yahweh Brimstone over on Rumble in a minute, but I'm going to finish this little line of questioning first, because they're very interesting points of view. I don't know if they're going to cover this today or not. However, I don't know who posted this video, but whoever took the pictures of the person on top of the roof, there was supposedly a Secret Service agent that said, hey, send me those pictures. They don't know who this person is. And I've seen this post and I thought I bookmarked it, and I'm mad at myself that I didn't bookmark it because I bookmark everything and put them into folders. Especially when they're on topics that are hot that we're talking about on here. Dang it. But anyway, it was very interesting about it kind of makes you wonder, well, who was that guy and why were they sending him pictures of this guy? I don't know. It was all really fishy, but I wanted to find the exact post. Anyway, I couldn't find it.
Yes, I would say minutes, but I can't, I would be remiss if I gave you, and I want to be very clear on the record. When you do an investigation like this, the timeline is critical. You're asking me, I was briefed. I'm answering to the best of my ability right now.
And I know my time is up. Colonel Paris, I want to thank you for, providing us this information. It was incredibly disappointing that the director of the Secret Service did nothing diligently to try to get witnesses here. This is not an academic exercise. This is not something that the American people can wait 60 days for. With these gaps in information, there are conspiracy theories, there is disinformation, 100%. And all of our safety is at risk. Political violence is escalated, and we need to know these answers. I thank you for bringing these witnesses here. And
absolutely. And I appreciate the tag team between two sides to get to the details on this, because this is poignant, very poignant. I now recognize Ms. Green for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Paris, I'd like to carry the dialogue on about this.
Oh, wait for it. I didn't know Marjorie Taylor Greene was gonna be in here. Okay, hold on just a sec. This is an interesting perspective. And this is someone else's experience during, was it Columbine, it sounds like? Was that the 2012 election? So it sounds like you worked for someone like that was in law enforcement. Yeah, Secret Service is not, they were doing not friendly things with underage children in South America. Yes, correct. So we were directed at the time to delay the report of an investigation until after the 2012 election. David Nealon, the lead investigator on the Columbia case for the DHS Inspector General's office. Oh, that was for the Columbia case. Never mind. All feds are liars and all feds are, yeah. All right, I'm reading it. These are not my words. These are someone else's. Not all feds are liars and not all feds are bigots. I think federal government, just like Hollywood, they have to get leverage and a tape of you having relations with people who are not of age in order to move up the ranks. And if you look at the what is that word? It sounds like psychotomy. Okay, I'm gonna say that's what it is. That's a new word. I'm gonna have to look that up. I think I know what it is. Like the personality or their makeup of people like Adam Schiff. He likes never mind, not reading the rest of that one. Thank you, Yahweh, for yada da da da. Okay, thank you. But they still haven't answered about the ATF agent who they called after the shooting, or the mysterious man. Yes, Yahweh, that was the guy I was talking about, the guy in the gray suit who they gave, they sent him pictures. They gave him pictures of the person on the roof. Is it physio? Is it never mind. Thank you for giving me the word. Physiognomy. Oh, physiognomy. Okay, physiognomy. Thank you. That one was easier for me to. Physiognomy. There you go, guys. There was my English lesson for the day. Thank you for sticking with me as I read that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was what I was talking about. I have a post of the guy in the gray suit that they gave pictures to. I know I replied to it or posted it, so I'm going to have to find it. Yeah, and the body cam footage, yes, that was very interesting. I don't want to play that one on YouTube, even though it was released by Grassley. I never know these days with these people. All right, guys, should we hear what Marjorie Taylor Greene has to say? I'm just telling you, I like her little questioning to the point. Maybe we're going to start getting some answers. Maybe not.
Specific timeline. I have a timeline that was given to us on the Oversight Committee yesterday when we questioned former Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle, as she has resigned today. But the timeline that I'd like to talk to you about is exactly what you were just discussing here. 18 minutes before President Trump took the stage, it was at 5:45 that the Butler County Emergency Services noticed Thomas Crooks on the roof, took a picture and reported it. You stated just a few minutes before in your testimony that that police or PSP were given a phone number to the Secret Service and that Butler County Emergency Services texted or sent the picture. Was that a text? Was that a digital platform? Was it an email? How did they send the picture?
So just to be clear, at that period of time, at 1845, I don't believe the testimony was
5:45 p.m.
1745, 5:45 p.m. Yes, ma'am. He was not up on the roof at that point, is my belief.
No. Emergency Services noticed Thomas Crooks on the roof. This is the timeline that we have. Took a picture and reported it. Who did they send that picture to?
Just to be clear, they were posted in the AGR building and took a picture of him. That's what you're.
Yes. Who did
that
they
is my
send the picture to?
So I only know from interviews what I can confirm to my knowledge and belief here today that a member of Pennsylvania State Police inside of the command post received that information telephonically and by text, related to the Secret Service, and then was given a number to follow up on. And that was based, again, heightened suspicion.
How did they relay it to Secret Service?
I believe that they verbally turned and said in the command post, this is information that I just received. And then in follow up to that, as directed from the interview that I was briefed on, that was forwarded by text as requested by the Secret Service.
Can you give us copies of that communication and that phone number that was given to them for Secret Service?
So that's part of the ongoing investigation, and I would defer to the legality of.
Can you find that information and provide it to our committee?
I will look to see if legally I will consult chief counsel within the state police, but it is an ongoing criminal investigation at this point.
So after it was reported, President Trump took the stage at 6:03 p.m. All of this took place. This was 18 minutes before President Trump actually took the stage at 6:03 p.m. President Trump was shot in the face at 6:11 p.m. This has all been reported, these timelines. Why do you not have a timeline?
Because it's not the timeline is going to be critical for the after action report.
Because the timeline. Why don't we have a timeline? We don't have a timeline, and we'll provide that in our after action report, very detailed. As soon as we're done putting exactly on that timeline what we want the people to think they know. That's the purpose of not having a timeline now, because I don't want us, the American people, who have a slew of independent journalists going out there scrubbing the internet and finding the truth. If we have a timeline, we can find the truth. And can you see how he stutters and hesitates? That's a big sign of a big fat liar.
Obviously, we're conducting an investigation with the FBI. We have been deferential to the FBI in terms of what has been released.
Well, he's saying legally, Brimstone, because legally it's under investigation. It's currently under investigation. If they use that term, they can get away with saying nothing. That's it. And I'm going to have to mute. I'm going to sneeze. Don't sneeze. Don't sneeze.
To the media, I was present for one press briefing on the night of Saturday night, July 13th, and we've been deferential to the FBI on that. So I would refer you to the FBI. The timelines that you're quoting, I just want to be clear on the record. To my knowledge and belief, I don't have a minute-by-minute timeline. I've had multiple briefings about what these interviews have gleaned, but they're from the perspective of PSP investigating the homicide and the 2 attempted homicides.
Thank you, Colonel. During the event, at what point in the day was someone from your team first made aware that there was a potential suspicious person or possible threat?
So based on my knowledge and belief, that information relayed to the command post from Butler ESU, in terms of Crooks, was the first time that I'm aware of. Again, keeping in mind, I've heard estimates that there were 13,000 people there. there were multiple people identified as suspicious, several that were identified in that area.
Yes, thank you. Now you stated before in your questions that you haven't seen an operation plan, but didn't your team participate, and why haven't you seen the plan?
So as my answer prior on the record, I've asked for it. The state police has asked for it. We have yet to receive it. And my understanding is that our walkthrough with our commanders and our area commander was to delineate what our responsibilities were, and we endeavored to fulfill those responsibilities.
Who was the Secret Service agent in charge of the advance team?
I don't know the name of the agent.
How was PSP supposed to communicate with Secret Service on the advance team?
You mean in the planning leading up to it? So my understanding is, as is typical, we're notified. We were notified by email on July 5th. The meeting on July 8th, Monday, was to get all of those partners together to exchange information, how they could communicate with one another, and then the planning took place from there.
Could you provide our committee a copy of all those communications, Colonel Pierce?
So I will check with our legal counsel. I mean, Pennsylvania has multiple state statutes that cover investigative plans or law enforcement sensitive information.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, one more thing, if I may. Trump's Secret Service protection could be removed under Benny Thompson's proposed legislation. This legislation was introduced while the politically weaponized government was prosecuting former President Donald Trump. This would leave him at risk. I'd also like to state for the record for this committee that over 140 inmates are murdered in prison every single year. This is a dangerous place, prison is, and of course, 8% of violence in prison leads to murder of inmates. This legislation is reckless, and the minority ranking member needs to withdraw this legislation that would lead to the murder of President Trump.
Ladies, time has expired. I now recognize. Well, we're not going to debate.
You think that statement should be made when the ranking.
I love how she just got that little piece in there. And yes, she's 100% correct. But Trump's not going to be going to prison. So yes, they should remove it because it's a bad piece of legislation. And, you know, if you're a president, that's a really risky job. You should have a Secret Service protection. Okay, would that apply to, say, someone like anyone that ever has had Secret Service protection, or is it just presidents or lawmakers? I want to know how that works. So yeah, Hunter Biden has Secret Service. Would that apply to him as well? Interesting.
Members here so we can at least address it. Thank you.
He made his point earlier about his bill. There's a difference of opinion, I suppose. But y'all are out. Okay.
We're not debating the bill today. We're going to focus on this investigation, but there are just a couple people that just got to slide that stuff in there.
I'll recognize Mr. LaLota for 5 minutes question.
Thank you, Chairman. 10 days ago.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman.
10 days ago, a 20-year-old with no military or law enforcement training, with no more than about $1,000 worth of equipment, and apparently working alone, thwarted the United States Secret Service, an agency with a $3 billion budget and about 8,000 personnel. In the early phases of this investigation, it is clear the Secret Service exhibited poor tactics, including substandard two-way communications with state and local PD. They displayed a lack.
I can't read his nameplate, so if anybody knows who this person is, please let me know, because I just would like to put their name on the screen, but not a big deal.
Of strategy, including not employing drones to surveil the risks to President Trump and the crowd. And since July 13th, the Department of Homeland Security and the Secret Service, evidenced by them not being here today, has avoided accountability by, among other things, avoiding hearings like this. The attempted assassination of former.
Oh, that's what I wanted to, before I moved on. I was going to push pause. I'm trying to let each segment go through and then talk about it. So it's about every 5-minute segment. So someone said that the feds are probably up to it. If you followed me and you know anything about the international syndicate, I have covered it at length, and I have been studying and listening to people who cover it at length. There's no separation between the FBI, if you want to call them the feds, the CIA, and various other people. It's not just those people, but this international syndicate is a group of people who are working towards one agenda, and that is for us to have a one world government. Anyway, so when you say the feds are in charge, I want you to think about Cheadle. Cheadle went to was it in 2020? So after J6, she went over to PepsiCo. And I don't remember the exact time frame, but she went over to PepsiCo, over to South America, and worked for 2 years as a head security officer. Well, a lot of the times what the CIA will do is they'll place people in companies. There's big companies all over the world, and they'll place these people in these companies as anything. It could be a broom closet monitor. I don't know. But they send them over to these companies. They're getting paid rather well, but she was head of security. And they go in and they create coups. So there's two types of coups. There's a soft coup and there's a hard coup. Soft coup is like what J6 was and what happened in El Salvador with Bolsonaro. Those are soft coups. Hard coups are like what they did with JFK and who's the guy in? Was it Africa? Who? Gosh dang it, what's his name? I know that Julia knows who I'm talking about. But anyway, so when they are unalived, that is considered a hard coup. So anyway, she went over to PepsiCo for 2 years. And then she came back 2 years ago and became head of the Secret Service. Well, if she left the Secret, so she was with the Secret Service prior to that. So, and I think she was stationed in Georgia. Anyway, so she's got a long history of her Secret Service. So she goes over to South America for 2 years. There happened to be some coups that took place during that time period. And then 2 years ago, she comes back and is head of the Secret Service. However, if she left the Secret Service to go work for PepsiCo, she should have been drawing on her pension or whatever, but she was still receiving a regular government paycheck while she was over there. The only way that could happen is if she was still on the payroll, which means she was still there on an official capacity, which leads me to think that maybe she was CIA. And if you have CIA head of our Secret Service who goes to other countries and their goal is to create coups so that they can put a leader in place that's going to go along with their agenda, with their going over and taking their resources, enslaving people by paying them pennies on the dollar. That's what they do. And as soon as you vote someone in who says no to this international syndicate or this group of people that want one world government, they're taken out one way or another. And I don't mean death necessarily, but there's a coup or a soft coup that takes place. So think of Bolsonaro, think of Donald Trump, think of any leader that just happened to not be in place. Think of the people in Ukraine before they put Zelensky in. So you can do your own research. That information is there. She was there for 28 years total, right? She left for 2 years and then came back. You are correct. But the information's out there. I think it's even on Wikipedia that she went and worked for PepsiCo. But then you have to go down the rabbit hole and you have to start researching PepsiCo and all these different companies. And it's not just PepsiCo. There's other companies in other countries where people are placed that are from the United States. So you have to follow them around and you have to see, this person was in this country when this happened and then they left. Oh, then they went back to this country and this happened and then they left, right? So you got to the information's out there. You just have to know what to look for. Yeah, no, they said that at the hearing, but they didn't tell you that she left for 2 years, and maybe they did. So that I do remember them saying that, and that's where the whole Cheeto thing comes from, right? You're not even qualified to guard a bag of Doritos. That's where that comes from because PepsiCo, Doritos. I don't know. I thought that's where that came from. But I just wanted to say that. Most of you who follow me, sometimes it's repetitive, but repetition is how we learn and how things stay in our memory bank. But please do your own research. That is my assumption based off of the data and the facts.
President Trump, the leading candidate for president in 2024, shocked the conscience of nearly every American, regardless of party affiliation. We, the members of the Homeland Security Committee from both sides of the aisle, are here today to ask questions and about those who are in charge that day, to hold the Secret Service accountable, but more importantly, to ensure this never happens again. Chairman, thank you for hosting this hearing. Colonel Paris, you're the Commissioner of the Pennsylvania State Police Department?
Yes, sir, I am.
And your testimony, sir, is that approximately 25 minutes, and won't hold you to the exacts, but approximately 25 minutes before the first shots were fired, that local law enforcement officers identified Crooks as suspicious?
As suspicious, yes, sir.
And what was it that led those officers to conclude that Crooks was suspicious?
My understanding was that he was milling about, and he stood out to them because he never made his way to a point of ingress to the venue in defense.
Okay, I really hate pausing in the middle of them questioning. I'm sorry, but this triggered something. So HHS, guys, or HHS. Anyway, he's on that committee, which means he's on the committee that is, they changed their policy, which pretty much all but made it legal for the trafficking of minors in this country. And we spend $50 billion. Sorry, not 50, $5 billion a year. And I think they increased it to $7 billion this year to facilitate children through NGOs. So the HHS has this money. And then there's these NGOs that go out there and they place these children into supposedly their families. Well, they did away with the DNA testing to be able to locate these children's families. So these people will, through, what is that app? They threw an app. I can't remember off the top of my head because I wasn't planning on talking about this. And my brain's almost done for the night. But anyway, through an app that they communicate through, that's not really, secure or anything like that. Say, hey, I'm this person's family member. Send them to me. Okay. So the HHS gives money to these NGOs. There's people who volunteer to help, these children get placed with their sponsors, and they're supposed to be family members. Well, they're not going to family members. They're going to MS-13 cartel. This is our HHS, and they just changed the policy because HHS is not investigative. They're not they can't do background checks. They can't do any of that stuff, right? They don't do that. But DHS does do all of that. But anyway, they just changed policies, and I can't tell you off the top of the head how they changed it. I'll have to go back and refresh it. I just want you to be aware that when people talk about HHS, that you guys need to be aware of that faction of the government as well. It's very corrupt, and it really needs to be fixed. And the only way it's going to be fixed is if people are aware of it. There was one home, 500 children went to one home, and this is on the record, but I'm going to stop talking about that because I wasn't going to make tonight about this, but I will bring it up, especially when something triggers it, to remind you guys to be thinking about this. Oh my gosh, health and human sacrifices. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to send that one to someone. But anyway, it's really sad, and that tears at my heartstrings. But we're gonna get back to this hearing. I'm probably gonna go. We're not going to get through all of this tonight. I've had a really long day, but I'm gonna go as long as my brain is keeping up because I don't want to fumble.
Offensive possible hypotheses. Could have been waiting for somebody. Could have been delayed, but he stood out to them, and they, from their vantage point at the AGR building, identified him as suspicious.
That was 62 minutes prior, as I understand the timeline. That first one, it was 25 minutes prior for the rangefinder.
Thank you, Chairman. And Commissioner, with respect to him being suspicious, were there other folks who were also in the crowd identified as suspicious by law enforcement?
I have been briefed that, yes, there were multiple individuals, which would be consistent with normal operations for a detail like this that are identified as suspicious.
Can we take that as a single-digit number of other folks?
The number that I was briefed on was single digit, but I can't say definitively that I was.
What number were you briefed on, Colonel?
Excuse me?
What number were you briefed on?
I believe I was briefed on an additional 3 individuals.
Okay, so Crooks plus 3. My understanding is you had about 30 Pennsylvania State police officers at the time of the rally?
that were assigned to the detail, the both responsibilities of the detail. Yes, sir.
And were all of them assigned to your area of the perimeter, not the interior where the Secret Service held the most jurisdiction?
I'm confused by your question, sir.
My understanding and what the committee has been told is there were two layers of defense of President Trump. One, the interior, which the Secret Service held the most domain over, and two, the exterior perimeter, which had ceded a lot of authorities to state and local. Is that your understanding as well, Colonel?
So I don't want to get convoluted with different perimeters. I'm familiar that there was a VIP seating area up front. When I refer to the secure perimeter, I'm talking about the fencing that goes around the Butler County Farm Show. All of our people were detailed at various locations decided by the Secret Service inside of that.
Thanks. That leads me to the next question. If staff can queue up the Eli Crane video to about second number 1 or 2. This is the AGR building. I and several of my colleagues were there yesterday in Butler. Kudos to Mr. Crane for getting this good video. My understanding from your prior testimony is there were 2 officers stationed or assigned, I think was your testimony, to this building?
I'm aware of 2, but I don't want to say, again, not having seen the Secret
And they were assigned, sir?
My understanding is that the Secret Service and Butler ESU had some sort of collaboration, and that was to be covered.
What was their assignment in the building, sir?
I cannot comment. I'd be remiss not.
Were they assigned to be in the building?
I can't
What were
comment.
the qualifications of the people assigned to or around the building? ESU guys, SWAT guys,
I
long
defer.
guns, good tactics?
They would be, as the name implies, but I defer to their exact training. I'm not aware of it specifically.
But your understanding is through the duration of the incident to at least the first shots fired, they were entirely within the building, not on the building, sir?
I don't 100% want to say where they were the entire period.
But you don't have an understanding as to whether they were assigned to be in the building or on top of it?
I don't. I would need to see the Secret Service operations plan.
And would that have been left to the discretion of state and local, or would that have been left to the discretion of the Secret Service? It sounds like you're saying that would have been left to the discretion of the Secret Service.
I would say it's the Secret Service as the lead agency, just like they told us. Here's the post we want you to staff. This is the motorcade we want. I would defer to the Secret Service.
Thanks, Colonel. When in Butler yesterday, we asked the question, why weren't the 2 well-qualified ESU officers on top of the building rather than in it? And what would you say if we were told the explanation is, well, it was a hot day in Butler and there was air conditioning inside the building and not on the building? What would be your reaction to that assertion, Colonel?
I can't respond to it. I have no firsthand knowledge about it.
Was it a hot day in Butler that day?
I believe it was a warm day, yes, sir.
But you have no knowledge of whether or not the Secret Service or anybody else assigned these 2 officers to be in the building and not on it?
No, sir.
I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields, and we're going to go out of order because Mr. Luttrell has to get to his committee, so you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you pull the video back up, please? Just for clarification, that is the exact point where the shooter was positioned, correct? Looking through that window in proximity to, if you give a range fan, if you was to expose yourself outside that window, is that the shooter's position? No? In relation to that video, where is the shooter's position at? Just further on the left side. And Mr. Paris, can you clarify something? There were ESU agents internal to the building or in proximity to the building and in that location, correct?
I don't know to that specific location, but they were assigned to the AGR building.
And once the call went out that you had a bad actor in, the agents in the building left their position to try to find that individual?
My understanding is he was on the ground moving around the perimeter, and they moved to actively aid in the search along with additional municipal officers who were.
Does it make sense that ESU agents would be positioned inside the windows so they'd have a better vantage point out into where the X is, or where the asset is located?
Could you ask that question again?
It makes sense to me that the ESU agents would be positioned in these windows, the windows that they're talking about in this building, so they could have better eyes on the asset, the president, instead of internal to the building milling about. Is that a fair assessment?
I'm remiss because I don't know what the conversation was and what the responsibilities to Lynn.
I think my concern is if we did have agents, let's just speak hypothetically here, if agents were positioned in these windows in order to provide protection for the asset, and then they were released, and I'm assuming they work in pairs, correct? There's only 2 of them, or is there 4 of them in the building? Do we know the answer?
From my briefings, there were 2.
There were 2. But to me, it would make sense that one would stay behind in order to cover the X or cover the asset, and then one would engage in activity to find the actor that they were trying to identify, correct? I think my concern is the individuals may, and I hate to say this out loud, but if we didn't do due justice and we left that asset exposed because both ESU agents went to look for a bad actor, we just gave the shooter a bowling alley.
I don't know what their responsibilities and their rules of engagement were, not having seen the Secret Service operations plan. And I'm reluctant to speculate at this point, 10 days out, sir. I would rely on the reviews yet to come.
When it comes to Secret Service, talk comms matrix here real quick. When it comes to Secret Service and the local law enforcement, the state law enforcement, I understand that they are housed in the same, is there a common communication channel? And if so, does each agent and each officer that's working the event have, and I'm going to use old terminology, do they have an avalanche call? Do they have a no joy? When they see something that raises the red flag, can any officer radio in, go, no go? We are not, hold the asset in place. We have somebody that we're looking for. And if they do or if they don't, how many people does that have to go through to get to the right actor in order to say stop?
I don't know.
Okay, we need to figure that out. Because if I'm an ESU agent in this window and I have to radio a person who has to radio somebody who has to radio somebody else to get to the main person, then to call it, the dishes are done.
I'm aware of 3 radio systems in operation, PSPs, the Secret Service, and Butler counties.
All communicating on different channels.
Technically, yes, but the integration occurs, I can only speak from PSP, our integration occurs by us having somebody inside of the Secret Service command post. Again, for an incident of this magnitude, in theory, the more people you have on the same channel, if there was a medical emergency or lost 6-year-old and everybody keys up at once, it paralyzes your communication.
I understand that, but
I can totally see why they have different channels. One, it might be for secrecy and privacy, right? However, there needs to be one post, one command center where everything is being relayed, where an emergency message could get out, where they could almost jam everything else going out and be able to communicate in real time. Like there has to be a way for that. Like I can see why you wouldn't want all communications on one stereo. I can logically see that. However, everything they're discussing here does not matter. In my humbled opinion, you can't foresee this happening if it's planned, right? The problem is the plan got effed up. Trump decided to turn his head and look at this beautiful, what did he turn his head this way? He turned this way to look at his beautiful border. Right? That's, looking at the border. That's a sign that he's supposed to be here to still protect these kids. He's the only one that was doing that. I'm just saying, I've researched this, guys. I voted for Biden. So I can say that I can be an objective person, that I've got educated. I've done so many rabbit holes. I don't know how much education that I have had in 4 years. And that's why I'm sharing what I've learned with you guys. And not so that you can think the way that I think. I don't want you to think the way I think. I want you to think with your own brain. I want you to think for yourself. But I want you to learn how to read what people are saying. I want you to pay attention to the words. I want you to pay attention to how they change a word to kind of obfuscate to where they're still telling you the truth, but they're still not telling you the truth. Does that make sense? Mr. Luttrell, lone survivor. Who is that SE medic? Am I missing something?
if there's one specific channel that you can go to call an avalanche and say, which is freeze the asset. I think that would be necessary. Now, you mentioned something earlier. You got done about 20 events this year in Pennsylvania. So, and you spoke, it's common. Now, the military folks in this room are going to understand it's the first month of deployment and the last month of deployment are the most dangerous times to be in combat. One, because you get there the first month, you have no idea what's going on. And then you're there and you get common. You get complacent. And before you leave, that last month, situational awareness kind of dies down a little bit, and that's when bad things happen. There's absolutely nothing common in protecting a president, ever. And as we move forward, I don't want that to be a term that we use, because Common just got our president, our former president, shot. And if these assets would have been on.
Thank you, SE Medic. You are saying Mr. Luttrell, who is speaking right now. Thank you for that. I was multitasking and I didn't get his name put up. So anyway, thank you.
High alert. And I'm not saying that they weren't. But when things become common, we get complacent.
I've instructed our commanders moving forward, if there is any, my expectation would be that through the collaboration and the planning of these events, you want more people there, you want people voicing issues and everybody operating on the same page in a unified command. But I have instructed our commanders, the ops plans get reviewed prior to this up through our Deputy Commissioner of Operations, Lieutenant Colonel Bivens, seated here behind me today. But as a result of this, if there are any issues that our people see, we are ordering them to flag them, and we'll work collaboratively moving forward for the remainder of the season and moving forward.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields. And our witnesses, at any point where we're going to probably go at least another hour here, if you need to take a break, just let me know and just give me the high sign or a thumbs up. Y'all are okay right now? Or are you?
Yeah, we can take a break.
Take a break? All right, we'll do 5 minutes and 5 minutes only. The restroom's right down the hallway to your right. Adjourn.
All right, all of my lovely friends. So we're at the 3-hour mark on this. I want to continue this tomorrow. So if I do this, it's going to have to be a daytime stream. I do have a guest on tomorrow night. Some people may not like my guest, but I'm still having him on because he's my friend. And we are doing my 100th. Well, I hit 100th episode last week, and I didn't get a time to celebrate with my friends and people who support me. And it's for those who know Drexel, he's coming on, but we're going to have, it's not this bashing woman thing tomorrow night. And that's never wants to be the goal. We don't want that to be the goal. It's to, how can you avoid certain things? But tomorrow night, we're going to talk about, I'd made a comment about how far the red pill community has gone to the point where they instantly judge someone from the outside. And in this judgment, they assume that you're a certain way by the way you look. And they know exactly who you are based off of that assumption. Well, that is causing people to miss out on a lot of opportunities in this world. People look at me and they say, someone made a comment the other day and said, "Oh, you look exactly like one of these gold digger, hoes, right?" So they automatically assume because I look a certain way, they don't realize that I have a small house, I have a small yard, I raised a family. Like that's what I wanted to do. That's what I chose to do with my life, and that's fine. But they make these assumptions, and so they never see past that. They don't. There's so much into this red pill that everyone is way out there. So we're going to talk more about the guys who are red pill that actually sit in their mom's basement that really, anyway, I think it's going to be fun. I want it to be more conversative. I don't think that I'm going to have more than him on tomorrow night because every time I have other guests when he's on, I feel like the conversation gets derailed and we don't really get to have a real conversation. So the goal is to have a conversation. I have views from a perspective that is family oriented. That's, I've always wanted to have a family. Always want to be with just one person. So we're going to come from that perspective of that. And then you have him who's been jaded that, believes in the passport bros, big town, whatever, So that's kind of his philosophy. So to have two different points of view, to have a genuine conversation and maybe some laughs along the way. It should be good. Red Pill Project, I'll check it out. I'm not really huge into the red pill community. If you're talking about females, that community, that stuff bores me. Because at this point, I feel like it had a need, and I feel like people do need to wake up, and people need to learn how to be discerning with who they choose. But I don't want to go too long about this because we're going to talk about it tomorrow. But I wanted to stop. I was starting to lose track of what they were saying in this hearing, and this is important enough that I want to be focused as we're listening to it, to where we can conversate back and forth through the chats. I give you my thoughts, you give me your thoughts, right? That's how I want this to work. I always want this to be about truth, right? And having a bunch of people chatting and sharing your perspective helps me have a greater perspective as well. When I started this channel, it was about learning together. I would pick a documentary that I'd never seen that looked like, oh, this looks valid. I'd watch a little bit of it just to make sure that it was going to be interesting enough to keep our attention. And we would go through and we would learn together about a new topic. On other topics, when we did book reviews, there are some times where I had to do more research so that as we're listening to the book, I could simplify it easier. And that was Operation Gladio. And that was the hardest one for me to do because there's so much information compacted into a tiny little book, right? Um, but the information is valuable, and I just want to continue to learn together. Okay, for those who are still here, I'm going to share a video with people, but I'm not going to share it with people on YouTube. I love my YouTube audience. You're amazing. But this is not going to be one that I'm going to share on YouTube. I think it's hilarious. Some people might take offense to it. There are swear words in this video that I'm going to share with you. So if you don't like swear words, please, this is your opportunity to log out right now. And this is me sharing a piece of my life because I was dying laughing today, like literally dying. Okay. But I love you guys. I am ending this on YouTube. I just want you guys on YouTube to remember there's only two things in this world that you can control, and that is your attitude and your effort. Nothing else in this world is within your control. That is all we get to control. Those two things. So control the things that you can control and don't worry about the things that you can't. Okay. Do your best to be the best you can be every day. That's all you can do. So with that, YouTube, I am going to say good night.